Is it time?
It is time for us to do what we have been doing, and that time is every day.
We'll know in a very short period of time, but it looks like it could be something that will be not good. Believe me, not good.
I see issue with that. And again, hey.
You're not going to be able to insult your way to the presidency. That's not going to happen.
I don't know who created Pokemon Go, but I'm trying to figure out how we get them to have Pokemon go to the polls.
I'm Ted Cruz, and my pronoun is kiss my ass.
So when you think about it, there is great significance to the passage of time in terms of what we need to do to lay these wires, what we need to do to create these jobs.
America is a nation that can be defined in a single word. I was going to put him.
Not good. Believe me, not good.
Hello, dissidents. Welcome, one and all, to a Tuesday matinee edition of the Do Dissidents podcast. Keaton Weiss here with Russell Dobular once again.
Hello.
How is everybody doing today? Thanks all very much for being here. Good afternoon to you all. We got a lot to get to today. Nice crowd in here. Start things off, 577 strong in the YouTube chat. 336 over on Rumble. So thanks everybody for filing in. I got to see that movie Eddington. I want to see that.
It's officially a big bomb, which of course it doesn't mean it's not good. I hear the reviews are not good on it, but I haven't actually.
Yeah, I'll have to go look into that. I have to check into that. I might see that one and do a review. That might be one that I might have to sneak out of the house for. That'd be the best review I could give it. Worth leaving the house for. Yeah, exactly. All right, folks. Well, hey, we got a lot to get to today, more than usual, because one story broke just before we went on, and so we had to add this one. Okay, so first is the part of it that's not breaking. Johnson shuts door on House vote before September on releasing Epstein files. So this was last night. Speaker Mike Johnson on Monday said he does not plan to allow votes on any measures related to the Jeffrey Epstein case in the House's final week in Washington before a weeks-long recess, despite intense pressure from some of his own GOP members to go on the record on the issue. So as of last night, they have a week to go until they go on August recess, August vacation. And as of last night, he was saying, you know what? No Epstein votes this week. We're going to block everything. We'll take this back up in September. Well, that then turned into today, House GOP has shut down Congress to avoid voting on Epstein files. So now they're just leaving town for the week. They called off the votes. They're out. Because they don't trust that this won't keep coming up, which it will, obviously.
And this is why. This is what we said when this little douchebag went on with Benny Johnson. Yeah, I think we need to release everything. It's easy to say that to Benny Johnson's audience, which wants to hear that. And we said at the time, let's see what he actually does. Here you go.
Here you go. House GOP has shut down Congress to avoid voting on Epstein files. This story just keeps getting better and better and better. Republicans on the House Rules Committee have ground business in the chamber to a halt to avoid having to vote on Democratic amendments calling for the release of the Jeffrey Epstein files. So apparently the Democrats are just going to put amendments on everything in the Rules Committee to vote up or down on Epstein to make them keep voting no. For weeks now, Republicans in Congress facing pressure from the White House have dodged efforts to force the release of the files, which may implicate U.S. President Donald Trump in crimes committed by the convicted sex criminal. More on that in just a moment. According to Axios, the House had been scheduled to vote on GOP legislation involving immigration and environmental legislation this week. But in order for these votes to reach the floor, they'd first need to pass through the Speaker-controlled Rules Committee, which has also been present with multiple multiple Epstein amendments. Republicans on House Rules, quote, don't want to vote no because they're then accused of helping hide the truth about Epstein, Punchbowl News reported Tuesday morning. So instead, they've chosen to simply stop work for the week to avoid having to vote at all. So to be clear, the Democrats don't have the votes on the Rules Committee to stymie legislation, but they can force Republicans to vote no on Epstein release amendments in order to push it through. And the more they force them to block the Epstein files release, the worse the polling gets for the Republicans. We did a segment on the last show. The most reputable pollster the last two cycles just showed devastating numbers, not only for Trump and for the Epstein issue, but for the Republican Party as a whole. So here is Mike Johnson today fielding a question. Now, the volume is very low on the reporter, so Aaron Rupar actually dictated the reporter's question. The reporter said, did the president or anyone in his administration ask you to delay the resolution until after recess? That's the question, and let's hear his answer. I guess this is her asking. That volume is really low.
No, but I, as you all know, I speak to the president multiple times a day on a typical day, often, always. And what I know about the president's heart on this is that he agrees with everything I've said here today. He wants maximum transparency, but he's also very insistent that we do not subject people who have already been victims of unspeakable crimes.
It's about the victims.
To further public scrutiny. And it would be a very dangerous thing to put those people's names out or to do.
Okay, first of all, no, it would not be a dangerous thing. Yeah,
that's what everyone's asking for.
Yeah.
Everyone's asking for that. That's exactly what we're talking about. That's very relevant to the demands.
Well, first of all, no, it would not be a dangerous thing, obviously. You could very easily blur out the faces and redact the names of the victims.
Of course. They've been doing this from the beginning.
More importantly, he's now saying once again they have criminal acts on tape. Like he's now implying that they have something, whereas before, first it was we have thousands of files. Then it was, well, New York destroyed a lot of the files. Then Kash Patel, well, I haven't seen any files. Then it's we have a lot of files, but it's mostly child schmornography for the censors here. Now it seems to be, well, we want to protect the victims. Well, if you're protecting the victims, now that means you have something, right? So they cannot for the life of them get their bullshit story straight. Besides from that, obviously, there's no need to release the names or identities of the victims whatsoever.
Release of information in a way that is haphazard, where they could be easily unmasked. And so you have to be very careful about how you do that. I think we have a moral responsibility to do that. We have a moral responsibility to expose the evil of Epstein, and everybody was involved in that. Absolutely.
Starts pounding on the thing. That's what I forgot to do today. It was a frantic prep day, but I meant to get the Nick Fuentes, fuck you, you suck. That would be a good sound drop for this. So just imagine that. Fuck you, you suck.
You're fat.
And we're resolved to do it.
Fat.
But we also have an equal moral responsibility to protect the innocent. And that is a fine needle to thread. And we could all give ourselves easy political cover and come out and do something in a haphazard fashion, but I would not be able to sleep at night because I know our legal responsibility. I understand what the legal standard is, but more than that, the moral standard, okay? So we're going to do this, and we're going to do it expeditiously. We're going to do it the right way.
What do you mean you're going to do this? The FBI and DOJ said you're not going to do this.
Right.
Yeah. What do you mean you're going to do it? When?
Yeah.
How?
I mean, I gotta say, when they made Johnson the speaker, everyone said, "Who the hell is this guy?"
Yeah.
But as time has gone on, you can see that he actually has the skills that they were looking for: shamelessness, amorality, the ability to just issue bold-faced lies without the slightest hint of blush in his face. Like,
I wouldn't be able to sleep at night if we release the Epstein files because we might embarrass the victims, even though there's no need to embarrass the victims. Plus, Pam Bondi said we don't have any victims. All we have are videos, that Epstein used to entertain himself. That's where you knew the fix was in from the beginning. Even before they straight out said they weren't going to release them, Bondi was hiding behind the victims. Now, Bondi and Levitt and Patel
love to work. Yeah, and Patel. They love to work up this fake Jesus rage about anything that you push them on. They're very good at feigning moral outrage against their antagonists. We are not going to re-victimize these victims.
Right, exactly.
Give a fuck.
Yeah.
You're throwing immigrants into an alligator-infested swamp. Yeah, you stay up nights worried about the welfare of others. You bunch of fucking sociopaths.
Yeah, it's pretty pathetic, pretty embarrassing. He starts pounding on the podium in indignation. We have a responsibility to get to the bottom.
Yeah, no, this is about the moral high ground.
Yeah, exactly. So the article continues. This has essentially ground all business in the House to a halt, because if nothing can clear Rules Committee, then nothing could be voted on, potentially until after Congress gets back from its August recess. So this is very America first, right? Like, if you're MAGA, don't you want the House passing Trump's agenda? They were passing some climate thing and some immigration thing. Isn't that part of the America first agenda? But now that all has to wait 6 weeks, because they don't want to vote to release the Epstein files, which they're going to have the same problem in 6 weeks. I guess maybe they're hoping this will die down by then. They're hoping by September it'll blow over, but it will not.
The president assures me that World War III will break out before September.
Yeah, right, exactly, yeah. On Monday, the ranking Democrat on the Rules Committee, Jim McGovern, told Politico reporter Mia Camille, "We're done in Rules Committee until September." The Rules Committee decides what gets voted on in the House. It's where Republicans have already voted 6 times against forcing the release of the Epstein files, said Representative Teresa Leger Fernandez from New Mexico, Democrat. They'd rather shut down Congress than vote to release the files. What are they hiding? Well, this could be what Trump is hiding, and he's not doing a very good job of hiding it. So this was a good find here. Mike Nellis says Trump fucked up and seemingly admitted he's in the Epstein files. Of course, he's claiming it's fake, but that's his excuse for everything. Take a listen, because I think this is the first time he's admitted his name is in the files. This is when he called into that show on the phone.
And they were run by Comey, and because it was actually even before that administration, they've been running these files.
Right.
And so much of the things that we found were fake with me. And so much of the things that we found were fake with me. And so much of the things that we found were fake with me.
Yeah, so there you have it. There you have it. That could be what they're hiding. I mean, look, obviously, if you look at Polymarket, the odds were what, 99% that he's in the files. So
Yeah.
I mean, it's fairly obvious at this point.
Yeah, I mean, he's too stupid not to just admit it on a random call-in with an obsequious anchor.
Right.
They actually did a pretty good and thorough segment about this on Breaking Points, and one of the angles on this that they got into, that there's been some writing about, is that book may have come from the book with the Trump letter, the alleged Trump letter to Epstein on his birthday, that may have come from Maxwell's people, and that may be a bid or a kind of veiled threat to get her a pardon. And there has been, I think it was breaking today, there's reporting that the DOJ is meeting with Maxwell's representatives.
Yes.
Which would kind of reinforce that theory that was a warning.
Right. Exactly. I mean, it certainly could be. I didn't watch that whole segment, but I watched the part that this video was in there you sent me, and then I found the video from there. But yeah, I mean, they are going to meet with Maxwell's people. There was that report that she was willing to testify. This would seem to validate that beyond any reasonable doubt. And then we'll see what comes of that. But in the meantime, Mike Johnson shut down Congress, basically. Just shut down Congress to avoid the embarrassment of Republicans having to keep voting no on the Epstein files. So that is unusually well played by the Democrats. Like, they're
really
actually doing politics fairly well. Like, hey, we're just going to keep making you vote to reject the release of the Epstein files. We're just going to make you keep embarrassing yourselves over and over and over again.
It's very Republican. It's a very Republican,
that's a very Republican type of move. Yeah.
But
exactly.
going to what you observed early on, and I think you're right, that the older people who, even if they're not personally implicated or connected to people who are, want to move on. Pelosi remarkably said in an interview, I think this is a distraction.
It's a distraction. This is the best thing that's happened to your party in 15 years. It's a distraction. Your party hasn't gotten this big a break since Obama 2012. Like, this is the best news the Democrats have had in years and years and years.
So you have to ask yourself, and Nancy Pelosi, whatever her other failings, is not someone lacking killer instinct. So why would she be trying to deflect from the Epstein files when clearly, as you say, this is a great political opportunity for her beloved Democrats, unless she knows a lot of people are implicated in it that she's friendly with?
Yeah, they're going to be a lot of Zoran Mamdanis in the House if it comes out, because a lot of Democrats are going to have to resign, potentially. Yeah. I mean, that's certainly one theory, and I think it makes sense. Killer Hittin says, since NPR is getting whacked, can you dirtbags interrupt your show every 90 seconds or so to play hip-hop beats and or quirky musical interludes and impersonate Ira Glass? Let's do brunch. Thanks, Killer Hittin.
Well, they're still going to be around.
Yeah, they are still going to be around. Yeah. They just, will not get that funding. I appreciate the Angry Gun Dude call out the other day. Sadly, I did not get to see it live. Oh, yeah, of course, Otacon. We remember you. Thanks for being here today. Glad you enjoyed it. Oh, George says, hey, guys, Russell is right. Candace's series about Miss Macron is thorough. I watched it, and I couldn't find a single hole in her case.
I came away convinced. Shoot, that was pretty convincing. And
I was about to say you couldn't find a single hole in Miss Macron.
Yeah.
That would be a smoking gun.
And they dismissed that case against the journalist that she based her reporting on, right? That's what she was saying. Piers Morgan owes her $100,000.
Yeah, I think they bet a bunch of money on it or something, right? Yeah, exactly. All right. Abiding 71 says, during the press tour of Up in the Air in fall 2009, Walter Kern not only dined at 3 Spirit dinners, but with fellow sous chef with George Clooney at elite events. During the press tour of Up in the Air. So did he have anything to do with that? With that film?
Well, he wrote the book that it's based on.
Oh, he did. Oh, well, I guess he did then. Yeah. I didn't know he wrote that book. Oh, all right.
Yes,
That's
he
interesting.
did.
Wow. Yeah, I did not
Yeah,
know
that's
that.
why a lot of people were coming at me when I said he's riding Taibbi's coattails. Did you know he wrote this? Yes. That doesn't mean anyone wants to hear him on a fucking podcast.
Yeah. I knew he wrote books. I didn't know he wrote
did
that
you
one.
hear the guy who wrote Up in the Air has a podcast now? Who would listen to that?
Right. Yeah. I knew he wrote books. I didn't know that was one of his. Makes sense now. Pieces fit. All right, there we go. Monkey Sput, the whole screen name is not showing up here. Ran out of care. Monkey Sputum says, why does the intro music sound like my dad's secret VHS stash from the 80s? That was my Afro Funk playlist. The first one does kind of maybe sound a little like that.
It's funny you mentioned that. The new version will be with us in the next couple of weeks, maybe even next week.
Oh, there you go. Cool.
Yeah.
Brandon Guillory, Johnson shrinks under pressure. Good one. Brandon says Johnson packs up ball and goes home. Richard Namulala, the victims Johnson is talking about are the honeypot dupes. Yes, that's right. All the powerful people who Epstein gave girls to. Exactly, Richard. Thank you very much for that. All right, so that was kind of the breaking news at the top, and now we will get to our more regularly scheduled programming here. All right, so let me just clean that up a little bit. Okay, so this is kind of a sequel to our Sunday segment. Misty Winston, our friend Misty Winston, who did a great job hosting the Jimmy Dore Show yesterday, coined this whole Russiagate affair reverse Russiagate, which I think is a perfect way to put it, because it really is reverse Russiagate. This is now the walls are closing in on Obama. That's essentially what this is right now. Taking a kernel of truth, right, which is that the Democrats did engage in a lot of sleaziness and manipulation, inflating the degree to which Russia influenced 2016. Well, they're doing the same thing here. They are now taking that kernel of truth and saying that Barack Obama is going to be jailed for treason, which is essentially what they're saying here. So Charlie Kirk, obviously very excited about this. DNI Tulsi Gabbard has just declassified documents that show overwhelming evidence that then President Barack Obama personally requested and intentionally manufactured and politicized intelligence to create the narrative that Russia was attempting to influence the 2016 presidential election in Trump's favor, despite intel assessments concluding that Russia was not trying to influence the election. Once again, that's not exactly what they concluded. They concluded they were not trying to affect the vote count, but they never conclusively said that they didn't engage in propaganda and trolling and that kind of thing. In fact, they said they almost certainly did. It was all a giant hoax. Now, that doesn't make what the Democrats did good. It's just, like I said, the Democrats took a kernel of truth, which is that the Russians were trolling for Trump, and they blew it up into the espionage scandal of the century. Now the Republicans are doing the same thing. They're saying the Democrats lied about Russiagate, therefore it's treason, and they should all be in jail for it, right? It was all a giant hoax. Well done, Tulsi Gabbard, for leading the charge on transparency and accountability. Let's investigate and prosecute. Nick Sorter picks it up. We must see arrests. Show no mercy, with Barack Obama's image in the thumbnail there. Aladdin comments, this is way bigger than what people think. What they did was treason. Nick Sorter replies, seditious conspiracy and treason. If no arrests are made, our justice system has no hope. Again, now they don't have to mention Epstein anymore. All right, so just so everybody is caught up, okay, we did a half an hour segment where we read through essentially Tulsi's entire press release where she says what happened. And what it essentially boils down to is Barack Obama or James Comey, technically, we don't know, was it Comey under the direction of Obama? Somebody higher up spiked a President's Daily Brief on December 8th that was sort of downplaying Russia's influence on the 2016 race. And before that PDB could get to the president, it was scrapped. A meeting was called with the president and his top brass, and Barack Obama then ordered a new intelligence assessment of the election. So just to steel man this, we'll hear from Matt Taibbi. There's an interview that he gave to Fox in which he lays out the quote-unquote damning details here.
Comey were the focus of criminal investigations that have been opened by the Justice Department. But these new documents that were released by Tulsi Gabbard and the Director of National Intelligence make it clear that the investigation is now aimed at the Obama White House, and in particular at Barack Obama, because of decisions that were made in early December of 2016 to suppress the presidential daily briefing and go ahead and order a new intelligence community assessment that ultimately would have much more aggressive conclusions about Trump and Russia.
So a lot of
Okay, so there you hear right from his mouth, that's what this big brouhaha is over. Now, once again, there is some subtlety here, because I would agree that that is a scandal. I would agree that the Democrats should be intensely criticized for that and pay a political price for that, which they did, and we did criticize them for that. Like, I'm not saying that they didn't do anything wrong. You realize the seriousness of calling for a former president to be tried for treason? You understand what that means? Do you understand what a ridiculous thing that is to say in context of this? He spiked a brief and ordered a new one. Again, the Supreme Court already ruled presidents have immunity for acts done within their official capacities as president. So what Barack Obama did was, at worst, cancel the publication of one review and ordered another one. Now, you could say he did that for rotten reasons, which I would agree with you he did. Is that treason? Of course not. Of course not. That is a laughable thing to say. Now, I'm not saying Taibbi is saying he's guilty of treason, but that's where they're taking the ball and running with this, the MAGA sphere.
Of course they are. Of course they are. Well, because their boyfriend has been exposed as the kind of pedophilic globalist that they supposedly were supporting him to defeat. And they are desperate to change the subject because this is creating a lot of cognitive dissonance for them. If this Epstein thing goes on much longer, they're going to have to start to ask some hard questions about the life choices they've made, and they don't want to do that.
Exactly.
Obama, right? They're very excited about this. Even without the Supreme Court ruling, which, if you remember, they were very excited about when it was, clearing Trump of any possible prosecution. And everyone pointed out, well, that's going to apply to Democrats too. But even setting that aside, intent is notoriously difficult to prove in a court. Even if you didn't have that Supreme Court ruling, how would you prove that was the intent?
Right.
How all he really would have to say is, I didn't think that conclusion was justified by the evidence. I asked him to take another look.
I didn't want my name on that. I wanted to take another look. That's all I'd have to say. Exactly.
That's it. How do you prove intent?
Is it shitty? Yes. Should voters take that into consideration when they decide whether or not to trust Democrats with power? Absolutely. We spent years saying just that. Is that treason beyond a reasonable doubt? That's a laughable charge.
It's December of 2016 into January of 2017, I'm assuming also. But Trump's people were in there for 4 years. And the current CIA director had his job for 8 months at the time. Did his people fail him? Why wasn't there more urgency on this and Trump 1.0 as there is now?
Yeah, that's a complaint I heard a lot over the weekend from people who have been following this, and even from former officials who are close to Trump. One of them said to me, a former high-ranking Trump official said there was, quote, so much corruption in the last Trump presidency that this shouldn't have been overlooked, that these documents should have come out. Absolutely. But the overall sense I get is that everyone's happy that they finally are coming out, and they're looking forward to what is likely to come out this week.
Now, of course, the real answer to that question is because they weren't trying to get the Epstein scandal out of the headlines for the 4 years in Trump's first term, right? I mean, the reason they're doing it now is because this is an obviously opportune time to try and distract their base with another deep state scandal, right? That's the real reason.
Okay, another question about Russia. Is the allegation they were trying to influence our election, or is the allegation that they actually changed votes? I think we need to be clear on that. What can we say?
So it's both. The Democrats are making a lot of hay over this apples and oranges issue, that there was never any question that they didn't actually change vote tallies. But they did influence the election. Actually, there was some question about whether they had the ability to influence the election. There were quotes earlier from that year with the FBI saying they didn't have any evidence that they had done so, and they were uncomfortable making that statement. There were also quotes saying that they lacked evidence that Russia had the ability to impact the outcome of the election. So all of this would have been passed on to somebody like Michael Flynn, because presidents-elect are entitled to receive the presidential daily briefing. That's why this is important. It's not so much what the PDB did say, it's what it didn't say. It didn't say that there was a sweeping conspiracy to help Trump. And if they had that, it would have been a very different political picture going forward.
Okay, so like that in itself is a fair enough point, like, because the incoming president is supposed to be privy to the presidential daily brief. So in other words, this happened in December of 2016 when Donald Trump was the incoming president. That was in the lame duck session. So you could say, well, if this were published, he would have had access to it. That's fair enough. I would just refer you to the previous question that the anchor asked there, which is, well, they obviously did have access to it at the office of the DNI. Otherwise, they wouldn't have gotten it now. In other words, if the DNI could look into previous administrations' info and find out which PDBs were spiked, if they could do that in 2025, certainly they could have done that in 2017. Now, John Ratcliffe did not take over as DNI until May of 2020. I forget the name of the first DNI. It was some kind of Jeff Sessions
would have been
type
real
pick. Rhodes, I think, something like that. Some Republican apparatchik, right? A swamp creature, as they would say. So this guy did not take over until May of 2020. Go ahead.
Yeah, it would be really interesting if Taibbi you just dropped a truth bomb on that anchor and said, actually, most of these fact patterns attached to Israel. Actually, Israel, but, I guess he chose not to do that. It's probably in an upcoming article.
Right. Yes, hopefully. So Clint Russell says, can anyone explain why John Ratcliffe, who held the same position as Tulsi under Trump, totally failed to identify the Russian collusion coup hoax against Trump and was then promoted by Trump to head the CIA? Fair question. Now, once again, he only had the job for 8 months, from May of 2020 until they left office. But the office of the DNI, yes, could have looked into that while Russiagate was going on. Don't you think that would be an urgent time to do it?
Yeah.
Like now,
that would be the best time, you might say.
You might say that would be the best time to go in and prove that Obama spiked a PDB that was softer on Russia and that downplayed Russian influence while they were being investigated for it, while the media was obsessed with it. That may have been a real big truth bomb to drop to stop Russiagate from gaining the momentum. Turns out they didn't do that until they decided to spike the Epstein case, and now they need a distraction. Funny how that works, isn't it? And as Taibbi mentioned in the beginning of that interview, it is possible that you will see some prosecutions vis-a-vis Russiagate. So this came out on July 9th, so this is a couple weeks old already. Ex-FBI Director Comey and ex-CIA Director Brennan are under investigation by the Trump Justice Department. The FBI is investigating former CIA Director John Brennan and former FBI Director James Comey for possible false statements to Congress following a referral from the current CIA Director John Ratcliffe, according to a person briefed on the matter. See, so that would be an actual charge, right? If you could actually charge someone with lying to Congress, that's an actual criminal offense. So some of these underlings may be charged for these related offenses. The idea of charging Obama for treason is obvious lunacy. The referral came after Ratcliffe last week released a review that criticized the 2016 U.S. intelligence community assessment, long criticized by President Donald Trump and his allies, that found Russian President Vladimir Putin sought to intervene in the election on Trump's behalf. In a post on X, Ratcliffe said the new review found that the original assessment was conducted through an atypical and corrupt process under the politically charged environments of former Director Brennan and former FBI Director Comey. The Ratcliffe review did not dispute the intelligence community's core judgment that Putin preferred Trump to then Democratic presidential candidate Hillary Clinton, but argued that agency leadership rushed the process and then Brennan risked stifling analytic debate by signaling that agency heads had already reached consensus before the ICA was even coordinated. The review made no mention of Comey. Once again, you're telling me they took a kernel of truth and blew it up into something nonsensical. Bad thing to do? Terrible? Is it prosecutable? That in and of itself doesn't seem prosecutable. Now, if they lied to Congress, that would be, but we'll have to see. We will have to see. In the meantime, Donald Trump is making a lot of hay of this, so he tweets this out on Truth Social. How did Samantha Power make all of that money? Look at all these Obama officials in jumpsuits with Barack Hussein Obama. I don't know why he's got the tan one. I guess that's a reference to his tan suit, I guess. But he's on the bottom there. Barack Hussein Obama. Trump also tweeting out this AI rendering of Barack Obama being arrested by the FBI during an Oval Office meeting with Trump. This is muted because the YMCA is playing under it in the video. But as you can see, Trump having a lot of fun with this, very strongly suggesting a prosecution.
I mean, you can't make this shit up. Like as you're getting this avalanche of evidence that Donald Trump, was probably hanging out with his buddy Epstein and doing illegal things with underage girls. He's putting out a video of Obama being arrested.
AI videos of Obama in jail.
He's really testing how stupid his supporters are.
That's correct.
Like, can I get away with this? Can I get them to focus back on my preferred enemies of Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton in the midst of all this?
Yep. Indeed. And he tweets out, Obama himself manufactured the Russia hoax. Crooked Hillary, Sleepy Joe, and numerous others participated in this. The crime of the century. Irrefutable evidence. A major threat to our country. Once again, just to echo Russell's point, he's just seeing how unbelievably stupid his supporters are. The fact that this is all coming out within a couple weeks of the Epstein files being dropped. I mean, how fucking stupid do you have to be? Once again, the opportune time to drop this truth bomb would have been while you were being investigated for Russiagate, while Robert Mueller was turning over every stone. That would have been a great thing to bring up then to get them off your back. No, they waited. They sat on this for 8 years. Until they needed something to take the stink off the worst political scandal of their 2 terms here. You know who did fall for it, though? Alex Jones. Arrest them all for treason now, he says. But even the info warrior is really not buying this. Radman says Epstein lists is the crime of the century. But since they can't admit that, let's drop 250,000 documents on MLK and bring back the Russia hoax. Right. Dwayne says...
I hear they've got some unreleased stuff on John Wilkes Booth that's coming out next week.
Yeah, right, exactly. Dwayne says, you fell for the distraction so fast, Alex. Have you stopped asking about the Epstein files now? Weak. Rafiq Adams says, this is a distraction, Alex. Stop it. Where are the pedos? Where are the Ford agents? Where's the blackmail list? See, so this is really not
where the hell's the
well.
money I need to pay this $1 billion lawsuit? That's the real question here.
That's what I want to know. So here's Donald Trump in the Oval Office today, now speaking in front of the cameras about Tulsi's quote-unquote bombshell.
Should be talking about is they caught President Obama absolutely cold, Tulsi Gabbard. What they did to this country in 2016, starting in 2016, but going up to 2020 in the election. They tried to rig the election, and they got caught. And there should be very severe consequences for that. You know, when we caught Hillary Clinton, I said, you know what? Let's not go too far here. It's the ex-wife of a president, and I thought it was sort of terrible. And I let her off the hook. And I'm very happy I did. But it's time to start, after what they did to me, and whether it's right or wrong, it's time to go after people.
No, that's good. Whether it's right or wrong, it's time to go after people. That's a great quote. They should put that up in kindergarten classrooms.
Yeah.
You know, in 2050. You know how they're going to have Lincoln's quotes and
Yeah.
you know, and Washington's quotes and Roosevelt's quotes. Hey, whether it's right or wrong, it's time to go after people. That should be engraved in the marble walls of your presidential library there.
Well, that's Confucius said that, right?
Yeah, yes. Confucius says whether it's right or wrong, it's time to go after people. Yes. So he goes on. Trump says, we found absolute, this isn't like evidence, this is proof, irrefutable proof that Obama was seditious.
Found is even more so. Now, we found absolute, this isn't like evidence, this is like proof, irrefutable proof that Obama was seditious.
Now, as far as we know, seditious.
He's making me feel better. You know, I take a lot of heat on pronunciation. You know.
Yeah, that was quite the job
Sedacious.
well done there. Seditious. As far as we know, according to the press release,
where did he go? UPenn, Trump?
Yeah, Wharton.
Where's
Well,
he?
it was Wharton. I don't know. He didn't go to the UPenn undergrad. I don't know where he went for that, but yeah, he did go to Wharton School of Finance, which is part of UPenn. Yeah.
Sedacious.
Yeah, he now as far as we know, according to the press release, I don't even think there's cold hard proof that Obama ordered the spiking of that PDB. We know Comey did. Now, is it likely that Obama, you know, somehow got wind of that and told Comey to shut it? Yeah, that's certainly possible. I might even say that's probable, but there's no proof of that. It could have just been Comey realized, hey, the boss isn't going to like this. We better call a meeting, right? Like it could have been scrapped at some other level. So you don't even have direct proof that Obama ordered the scrapping of that PDB.
Well,
Even if that did rise to the criminal level that he is attesting it did. As far as I know. I only read the press release. I didn't read the 114-page document that it was based on. I'm assuming Tulsi would have included that. If there were a smoking gun that proved Obama shut down that president's daily brief, I'm assuming she'd have put that in the 11 pages that she put out as a sort of concise version of her findings.
Yeah, in the end, this whole conversation is a farce. The Nation wrote a very well-researched article years ago. We featured it on the show more than once, demonstrating everything that looks fishy about the Trump 2016 campaign. Oh, it's fishy, but it's Israel.
Right.
Israel was actually connected to all of these events that they pointed out. Why did they have this meeting? Why did they do this? Why did they go to this? It was Israel. It's very easily provable. That information has been out there for years.
Of course.
But no one who has a vested interest in pumping this up as the so-called crime of the century is interested in litigating what actually happened here. That's a whole other discussion. Yes, there was election interference, and you can't really analyze the decisions that they made in the White House without taking that into account. Because on the one hand, you're looking at, well, the intention was to undermine the Trump campaign and then the Trump administration. But you also have to place that into a context of the intention being to cover up for Israel.
Of course.
And
right.
the role that they played in getting him elected.
Obviously. Yes. Certainly. So here's Matt Walsh, finally. Enough of the memes and the tough talk. Go put these people in handcuffs. In handcuffs. That's right. Matt Walsh getting on board. You know, he talked tough game about, you know, how we got to get to the bottom of the Epstein thing. And, you know, to be fair, he probably still feels that way. But, hey, you know, we know what this business is like. You're only as good as your last take. You're only as good as this week's numbers. So if this week's numbers are lagging and the boss says get on the Russiagate 2.0 train, then all aboard and we're on.
Is making a claim on the record. The Trump administration is making a claim on the record about a criminal conspiracy at the highest levels in Washington, D.C. to undermine Trump and subvert the will of the voters. And it's far from the first criminal conspiracy that people in the Trump administration or Trump himself have claimed. I believe them. I mean, I believe this conspiracy happened. The evidence is overwhelming. So what then? What will the consequences be? Right now, President Trump is, making a bunch of posts on Truth Social depicting Obama officials in orange jumpsuits. Tulsi Gabbard is doing hits on Fox News and posting these threads on Twitter. They're sounding notes of indignation and outrage. All that is fine. But none of that matters if they fail to actually go and make arrests. Barack Obama himself should be in handcuffs. You cannot allege a treasonous conspiracy and then do nothing about it.
Well, you can if the point of alleging it is to whip up a social media frenzy, which now you are participating in.
Yeah.
That's the point of saying that. There is no case against Barack Obama for treasonous conspiracy at all. I say this as someone who blames almost everything that's gone wrong in America over the last 15 years on the failings of Barack Obama. The failings of Barack Obama have really laid the groundwork for just about everything that's gone wrong in this country for the last 15 years. So I say this as someone who believes that his legacy must be picked apart and thrown in the dustbin of history where it belongs. But you have to call balls and strikes, and you have to, if you actually don't want the country to descend into fascism, one side has to be willing to say, you know what, we can't go here, because otherwise it's just eye for an eye until the whole world is blind, as they say.
Now, if I seem a bit cynical here, the typical pattern by Republicans since forever is to make these kinds of claims, but to make them only on social media and Fox News, and to never actually bring it to a court of law so the parties responsible can be held accountable for their crimes.
Okay, no, you do seem quite cynical here. Not for the reason you just laid out. You seem quite cynical because you strike me as a guy who's not quite as dumb as the Gunther Riegelmans, for example, who replied to this, memes do nothing. I want to see bracelets on these crooks. Matt Walsh does not strike me as a total moron like a lot of his peers do. And so what makes this very cynical is surely you know there is no case against Barack Obama for treason, and surely you understand, as someone who spoke pretty forcefully about the suppression of the Epstein files, that this is a distraction from said suppression of the Epstein files. And so you are just joining the pylon here, hopping on the bandwagon, in order to, gin up numbers, in order to gin up outrage against your audience, who is very pro-Trump, very anti-Epstein, and also very animated by Russiagate and by the idea of putting Barack Obama in handcuffs and sending him to jail. So you're indulging that fantasy, I would argue, quite cynically. This whole thing is completely cynical, and it's just so absurd on its face. But Donald Trump snaps his finger, and his errand boys get to work. Gunther Riegelman, Alex Jones, Matt Walsh, Charlie Kirk, Nick Sorter, the whole crew. The whole crew in one voice. Okay, this is the thing. What did they say? What's the meme of the liberal NPC? I support the current thing. Well, this is you guys supporting the current thing. This is the current thing. Yes, exactly.
Of course, yeah. Well, we'll get into this in my next segment here, but yeah, this is a business, and people keep going to these influencers who are clearly compromised, who clearly have no integrity, who clearly blow with the subscriber base wins, because they're not after the truth. They're after rage bait. They're after a product. They're after a narrative. If anything, having these guys, and this is why they do this, maintaining their integrity is very bad for business, because their audience does not want them to tell them the truth. They really don't.
No.
They want a certain very Star Wars, very simple child's understanding of morality, presentation of the political world, where one group is absolutely good and one group is absolutely evil, and they fight each other. It's just like the MSNBC audience. Same exact thing, and that's why it doesn't matter how many times they're abjectly wrong, how bad they are at their job. It doesn't matter, because that's not what it's about. It's about that narrative. It's about being addicted to that very simplistic good versus evil narrative.
Yes. And that is what they're indulging here. And the timing of it just couldn't be more obvious, which makes it just so debasing and so embarrassing. I mean, Alex Jones is staring down some big lawsuits. I guess he has no choice. But everybody else, I mean, come on. I mean, it's so embarrassing. But they're going down with the ship, apparently.
Well, especially Matt Walsh. She's making money on both ends. He just changes his hair a little bit. He gets to go on as Mike Figueredo.
Yeah, there you go. Yes, exactly. Exactly. It's good time for his alter ego there, for sure.
Yep.
What do we got over here? Zachary Taitian says, rest in power, Ozzy Osbourne. He will be missed. Ozzy Osbourne died.
Did he die?
Is that true?
Did he die like right after that last concert? That's poetic.
Is that true, or is that not true? Let me look that up. We have to check that.
Oh yeah, he died.
Really? Wow,
he died like a week after that concert. That's crazy.
Wow, that is crazy. Wow, look at that. Wow, that's crazy. Wow. All right, well, thanks for breaking that news, Zachary. Sorry we doubted you.
All right, man. The first album I ever bought with my own money was Blizzard of Oz.
Oh wow, yeah, that is something. Yeah, I just did a concert.
I was in, what, 7th grade?
Wow. Yep, we're seeing now in the chat. Ozzy Osbourne has died. Did you guys see the new Tim Dillon episodes? He was so bad that he wants so badly that Trump isn't a PDF file. So bad it's cringe. Even he brought Alex Jones on to sell it. I still have not.
That's what
seen
I've heard.
Yeah, I still haven't seen that. I can't seem to find it. I did a search Tim Dillon. Maybe I'll search Tim Dillon, Alex Jones. I didn't realize it was with Alex Jones. All right, maybe that'll make it easier to find. DWD Amateur, thanks for the $5. I have a joke for you. Did you know Ben Shapiro wrote a book called The Right Side of History? Ah, interesting. Good one, DWD Amateur. Landrew, thanks for the $100. Let's have a cowbell for Landrew. Thank you very much, my friend. Would Genocide Don launch nuclear weapons in order to avoid releasing the Epstein files? Free Palestine. Sorry about the censorship. No, I understood, Landrew. No worries. They should let you type what you want. You give them enough money. They should give you a free speech pass.
Seriously.
On YouTube. No, thank you. That's very kind of you. Russell's finding your sound drop because StreamYard moved it around on us.
I am Landrew. Landrew is dead.
All of this makes you worry a lot that they might start a war over this. I mean, Bill Clinton did a wag the dog bombing, and George W. Bush in September of 2001 was looking at poll numbers pretty similar to what Trump is looking at now. I mean, he was looking like a lame duck president. And so, yeah, if this keeps going, that's not outside the realm of possibility. I don't know if he'd launch a nuclear weapon. But as we're going to see later on in the show, Israel is acting more unhinged than ever, which is not a huge shock.
Yeah.
I mean, he might take them up on the offer. You know what? If you can get me out of a jam by getting us into a war, what the hell? Maybe we'll try it. Mark Pugliese, thanks for the $5. Let Barack pay the ultimate penalty. Keats is a DNC apologist. Yeah, that's right. I'm a DNC apologist.
Big
what
time.
was what was I going to say? There was something I was going to say too. Yeah. So when Trump says after what they did to me, I now have to go after them, whether it's right or wrong. Oh no, I did say this. They did it to me, so now I'm going to do it to them. Where that logic takes you is now when a Democratic president wins, they start threatening to prosecute rank and file conservatives for hate speech and misinformation.
Mm-hmm.
Like the only way you actually stop the backslide into authoritarianism is for one side to say, you know what, it's not worth it for us to exact revenge on you, because then when power changes, you're going to exact revenge on us. One side has to choose principle over partisanship, or else you are just going to live in tyranny. That is the direction that goes. No question about it.
Well, the other solution is the people overthrow this government.
Right. Yeah, but that's not going to happen because they have all the weaponry in the world. And so if you want to stop the backslide, one side has to just say, you know what, we're not taking it there. And because that's a big part of how you got here, is both sides kept taking it there. You know, January 6th, that whole thing that set the stage for.
I mean,
for a lot of this.
that's what's preserved the filibuster so far. Is that theory?
Right.
So far.
Exactly. So far. We'll see. Ryan says the Dems accused Trump of treason for years. Neither side is innocent here. No, neither side is innocent here. Daria starting super chats and stream with gratitude for you both. Well, thank you, Daria. Appreciate that.
Thank you
very much. That's very kind of you. Abiding says these online haters of Jennifer Love Hewitt wouldn't know Rubenesque if it sat on their face. Sanctions are required. Who's hating on Jennifer Love Hewitt?
I've missed that. I haven't even seen the nerd channels talk about that.
I haven't seen that at all. I don't even know what you're talking about.
I guess she's in the reboot of I Know What You Did Last Summer.
Oh, is it the same cast? Interesting. All right.
No. I mean, they bring her back as.
Oh, okay.
Like, it's not the same cast though.
Right. The Epstein file says I have a micro penis. It's fake news. It's commie lies. Thanks, Eric Huso. Appreciate that. Damn, the Prince of Darkness just passed away. Rest in peace, Ozzy. Yep, and is corroborated. Wow. Okay. Let's move right on along here.
All right. Speaking of our friends in the MAGA influencer space, foreign ministry to fund Israel tour for MAGA, America First pro-Trump influencers. So let's rewind a little bit before we get into this latest development. You might remember back in April, this blew up. Netanyahu pushes back on anti-Israel trends in meeting with podcasters. Now, Dave Rubin, having been one of those podcasters, was no surprise. But someone who got really embarrassed by the revelation that he was there, who expected them to play by Chatham House rules, was Tim Pool. Let's see what he said to justify not telling his audience that he was summoned by Netanyahu to a Hasbara meeting.
I got late word that I was invited to a private roundtable meeting with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. It was under what's called Chatham House rules. For those that are not familiar, this means that you cannot reveal anybody who attended, nor attribute anything to any one individual, as they can deny it, and they would. However, what I love about what the White House is currently doing, when you bring together a bunch of influencers and podcasters who don't know much about journalism culture, whatever you want to call it, not that we respect it tremendously, most people didn't know what Chatham House meant. So with all...
Okay, so I want you to pick that apart for a second. So the way he's trying to justify this is by saying the rules were supposed to be that no one was going to find out I was there.
Right.
And some of the people there didn't know journalism like I do.
Right.
They're stupid, ignorant, uncouth, lesser podcasters. So they spilled the beans.
Right.
That's supposed to make them look better.
Right. Exactly.
Now, does this have any influence on Tim Pool's reporting? Is it innocent? Well, you be the judge.
Concerned with having American aircraft carriers over there. Like, what I keep being told about the USS Liberty. That's something with the Israeli government.
No, you should.
No. Wait.
You should be careful about that.
Allegedly, the Israeli Air Force jet fighter aircraft.
I mean, they did end up paying out the American government.
So I'm concerned, like, false flag operation, like a missile comes out of Gaza and hits one of our aircraft carriers, but it was actually an Israeli missile. Well, I don't want. We should get out of there.
It doesn't. Well, let me stop you there. It doesn't matter where the missile comes from.
That's weird, huh? Holy shit.
So, yeah, I think you could safely say that Tim Pool has been compromised by Israel. I don't think that's a stretch to say that. You want to know how cheap lesser influencers come from? To paraphrase Tim Dillon, Tim Pool's pussy is probably expensive.
Right.
His pussy's probably not cheap. But there are a lot of people in this space who come very cheap. You might remember a few months ago, Nick Sorter broke this story. Over the past 48 hours, several large, supposedly MAGA-aligned influencers posted almost identical talking points fed to them, convincing you Maha was out of line for not wanting soda purchases with food stamps. And he got into how much they got offered. They were texted by Influenceable telling them to help push back against government overreach and told they'd be paid between several hundred and even 1,000 for each post attempting to turn MAGA folks against RFK Jr. and Maha. A few, not even all, 1,000 was the top rate. Some of them settled for a few $100s.
Yeah.
And they did it. Clown World, Eric Doherty, Not Jerome Powell, Ian Miles Chong, they all posted almost identical language about how Snap should be able to buy soda, which, I mean, that runs against the core of not just Maha, but just general conservative ideology. These guys took $1,000 basically to argue against the whole theory of conservatism without no questions asked. No questions asked. So how much more money do you think these guys get from Israel in many cases? I can't say who, but many of these people you'll see defending Israel who are in that space. How much money do you think they're getting from Israel if they will sight unseen just completely contradict the whole conservative theory of government for a few $100, $1,000 top amount? How much more will they do for God knows what Israel will give them? What do they do for a trip, right? All expenses paid trip. Well, so when you see someone like this piece of shit, Zionism Observer here says, the Catholics are Hamas is not something I expected. Joel Berry is the managing editor of the Babylon Bee. And this was part of a 3-day rant he went on after Israel bombed a Catholic church. This won't be easy for people to hear, but there are only about 200 professed Catholics still living in Gaza, and they all support Hamas. Now, if you know Zionists, it is entirely possible that he is just this much of an asshole. But when you look at the fact pattern, it's just as likely his opinions are paid for, that he is controlled by Israeli intelligence, like I think you can pretty conclusively say Tim Pool is. So to continue, to bring us up to the present, the Israeli Foreign Ministry will fund a tour of Israel for U.S. social media influencers affiliated with the Make America Great Again and America First brands of conservatism, which represent a significant portion of President Donald Trump's voter base. The initiative aims to boost Israel's image among young American conservatives by encouraging these influencers to disseminate messaging that aligns with the Israeli government's policy. The ministry will channel tens of thousands of dollars for the trip through the nonprofit organization Israel 365, which was awarded the contract without a tender due to its, quote, unique position to convey a pro-Israel stance that aligns entirely with the MAGA and America First agenda, unquote. Foreign ministry officials say the tour delivers significant media advocacy and diplomatic benefits and represents a strategic shift as traditional outreach is no longer sufficient to shape public opinion. They aim to leverage the massive followings of young social media influencers to bolster Israel's standing in the U.S. Founded in 2012 by Rabbi Naftali Tulsi Weiss, Israel 365 promotes support for Israel based on political, spiritual, and biblical principles. Its affiliated website states that the group, quote, stands unapologetically for the Jewish people's God-given right to the entire land of Israel. I can't be sure, but I assume they are speaking for the Greater Israel Project, which they seem to be undertaking right now. Rejects a two-state solution as a delusion and describes its mission as defending, quote, Western civilization against threats from both progressive left extremism and global jihad. Now think about what you hear from these trigonometry douchebags, what you hear from Douglas Murray. You see, these things fit together very easily, right? They are natural allies in many ways. Not probably the average rank and file MAGA person, but the people who make their money off this MAGA America First shit. Yeah, I mean, this is their shtick, right? And apparently a lot of it is paid for. The ministry's contract with Israel 365, valued at more than 290,000 shekels, $86,000, was justified by officials citing the group's, quote, experience and know-how in creating awareness, engagement, and mobilization of Christian audiences regarding their support for the Jewish people in the state of Israel. Since Hamas attacks in October 2023, ministry officials say Israel 365 has deepened ties with MAGA and America First movements, appearing at their major events and helping recruit prominent conservative figures to visit Israel. The initiative will bring 16 U.S.-based influencers under the age of 30, each with hundreds of thousands to millions of followers, to counter what the ministry sees as a decline in pro-Israel sentiment among younger Americans. According to a foreign ministry source, the initiative reflects a broader transformation in Israeli public diplomacy. Quote, we're working with influencers, sometimes with delegations of influencers, the source said. Their networks have huge followings, and their messages are more effective than if they came directly from the ministry. Okay, so you see how they're thinking. So very often when you see these America First, MAGA, Trump influencers tweeting out stuff about Israel, doing pro-Israel segments, they're compromised. They're compromised. These are not opinions that they organically hold. They're being paid or influenced to hold these opinions. The strategy appears to be paying off. During the 12-day conflict last month with Iran, Israeli digital messaging garnered roughly 1.8 billion online views, boosted in part by social media influencers with millions of followers. The foreign ministry has set a goal of bringing 550 influencer delegations to Israel by the end of 2025 to continue this outreach.
Wow.
Now, I want to make just one point here, and this is something that's often occurred to me. Okay, so you see here, American Jews tend to favor Democratic candidates, with 71% of Jewish voters choosing Democratic candidates on average, and 26% choosing Republicans since 1968. Now, in the last election with Harris, that held up. Like, there are different numbers based on the exit polling, but yeah, it's about 70% even in this election, even with all the controversy around Gaza. In this election, those numbers about held up. Most Jews are Democrats, and American Jews, and they're not just Democrats, they're very Libby kind of Democrats. They're very NPR kind of Democrats on the whole. But at the same time, 80 to 85% support the state of Israel. Now, this is kind of weird when you consider that the state of Israel is in love with their Antichrist, right? Trump is the Antichrist for Democrats. Look at the billboard when he won the election. Congratulations, Trump. Make Israel great. These billboards went up after he bombed Iran on a major highway in Tel Aviv, the main highway. Thank you, Mr. President. This is from Adam. This is a billboard in Tel Aviv, not America, Tel Aviv. The people of Israel know who Trump really works for, and it's not Americans. The billboard says, Mr. President, finish the job. So this is a contradiction that they deal with by pretending that what's going on in Israel is all Netanyahu's fault. It's basically the Bernie Sanders deflection, right? We must tell the Netanyahu government. They refuse to acknowledge that the whole premise of Israel is fascist, and that's why the country is so comfortable with Donald Trump. That's a natural partnership. The partnership with the Democrats, given what they like to pretend to stand for, is always very difficult to justify. Whereas if you look at the kind of fascist ethnocentrism that the Republican Party, particularly under Donald Trump, represents, Israel is a natural ally for that movement and for that party. They do not want to face that, and they do not want to acknowledge that while they proudly proclaim, I mean, part of how they square that circle is it's the only democracy in the Middle East. It's that Michael Rappaport stuff. Look, you could fuck a guy in ass in an alley,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Of course, it's this liberal oasis of sexual freedom in the Middle East, while at the same time, this ongoing genocide is something they simply cannot acknowledge exists, or if they do acknowledge it, it's all Netanyahu's fault. Okay, so it's the only democracy in the Middle East? Okay, well then they elected Benjamin Netanyahu. He's been in their government for over 20 years. So how do you say he doesn't represent Israel? Right? I thought it's a democracy. So that is how they square that circle. But it's a big contradiction, but it also tells you something about the policies of the Democratic Party and why they have these policies. If the Democrats actually posed any threat to Israeli aid, then you might see some of these, like, what comes first, the Zionism or the liberalism? I'd say for most of them, the Zionism. Like, if the Democrats really cut off aid to Israel, you'd see a lot of these liberal Democrats start voting for Trump. They really would. But at this time, they don't have to make that choice because in the end, the Democrats basically do what they do. Oh, yeah, this is terrible. We feel really bad about this while still supporting the regime.
Well, yeah, I mean, you saw a lot of that in Michael Rappaport, who you mentioned. You know,
Right.
I mean, he was considered a Hollywood blue MAGA liberal.
Right.
His content
Yep.
that he made as an influencer, podcaster, whatever the hell he is, shit talker, was all just anti-Trump content. And he would call Trump a racist, you're a liar, you're a misogynist, you're a sexist, you're this, you're that. When's the last time you heard Michael Rappaport criticize Donald Trump? I can't think of the last time I heard him say that. Right? Because for him, it was pretty obvious what the calculation was. Now, for others, it's not as easy as it is for Rappaport, but it is an interesting question, certainly. And right now, as it stands, and I think this is part of why a lot of the older Democrats are so hesitant to make a break from Israel, because they know a lot of their older base might split with them over this if they actually go in a more anti-Israel direction. I'm not saying that's the whole reason or even most of it, but I do think that is something that they think about, especially in these big cities, especially cities with large Jewish populations like New York, right? That's definitely something that they have to think about, and I think they do think about it, which is part of the reason why there's such stasis on that side, broadly speaking. In terms of the influencers, it just goes to show you that a lot of the incentives that exist in corporate media exist in quote-unquote independent media. And to a large extent, those incentives are more dangerous because, you know, you go up to one of these influencers, they're their own shop, right? They don't have to run it by the board, right? They don't get a salary from anybody. It's week to week, sink or swim. And so, you dangle some money in front of them. You know, promise them to the extent that you can, greater followership, you know, and exposure, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, man, a lot of these people will do it. If they'll hawk government subsidized corn syrup for a few $100, then of course they're going to do this. Of course they will. Yeah,
of course they will. You have to remember, for most people in this space, this is a business, and they've just taken an alternate route to a career in media. They bypassed the ladder that you would have to climb to get an anchor position at Fox, which is a steep ladder that you're not likely to get to the top of. And they just went independent, hung out their shingle. Most of them fail, but a few of them succeeded. But you got to remember, that's the perspective they're coming at it from. They're not activists. They're not moral actors. They're business people selling you a brand. They're selling you a product. Now, that is true of MSNBC as well. That's true of CNN.
Sure.
That's true of all of these. But with independent media, part of its brand is that it's supposed to be independent, and it's really not. It keeps reminding me of the line in Educating Rita, because when she goes to educate herself, she talks about how she's in a bar and everyone's singing, and she thinks to herself, there has to be a better song to sing. And after she's transformed, Michael Caine says to her, you didn't find a better song to sing, you found a different song to sing. Right. That is very much the independent media. It's not a better song. It's a different song with more downscale aesthetics.
Right. Exactly. Russell's Peasant Mind says, I stopped listening to Taibbi because of Walter Kern. He refers to himself in the third person far too much.
Does he?
Does he? I don't know.
Honestly, I don't fucking listen to that shit.
Let's see here. Maybe President Trump will pay more attention to Tulsi now. Ideally, she should replace your boy Lindsey Graham as Trump's golf buddy. Growing up in Hawaii, Tulsi likely plays golf. It's possible. P. Walker says, only thing they have to fear is an indictment 8 years later, Donald Trump quote, on a grade 4 wall at Richard Cheney Elementary School in 2050. Good one, P. Walker. Thank you for that. Habib, thanks for the $5, says, please don't forget Gaza, Palestine. I understand Gaza is not the cash cow anymore. Please give a few minutes of your time. We cover it about every show.
We cover it all the time.
At least once a show. So yeah, we have that's coming up today.
We have a segment today.
Yeah.
We had one in the last show. Pretty much every show.
I think we have 2 today, really. Yeah, we get Israel, Gaza is all the time, 100%. Let's see. John Olmsted, thanks for the $5. I'm actually named after Ozzy Osbourne. Crazy to hear he's dead. I thought he'd live forever. Well, it is, I don't know. Is it sad? I don't know. I don't know what to think. 76. He lived a full life, I don't really have an opinion on him.
I mean, the timing is funny. A lot of people are saying he was in the files.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I'm kidding.
You can joke about that now. He's gone. I mean, we're not going to do any reputational damage at this point. Furrow Squealing Fire Dancer says, can we please have a round of applause or a group hug for O. George, the real MVP? Thank you, O. George. Oh, did O. George make it rain with memberships today? We don't get those alerts in here in StreamYard. But thank you, O. George. Appreciate you as always. Judy Denmark, got to give Tulsi a lot of credit. I'd say all is forgiven for denying that Iran had a nuclear weapons program and making an anti-nuclear war video. Tulsi is on the A-list again. I trust you're joking, Judy Denmark. Thank you for that. EO Shush, hope you guys are covering the Tim Dillon, Alex Jones emergency podcast. Yeah, I still haven't found it. Well, now I'll search for it with the Alex Jones.
Everyone's bringing this up. When did it happen? When was it?
I don't know what happened to Tim Dillon during that dinner with J.D. Vance. Yeah, I just don't know what you're talking about. I'll have to look it up. Now that I know it was an Alex Jones video, I'll search Tim Dillon, Alex Jones. Maybe that'll come up. Yeah, but I tried looking for it. I couldn't find it. A dove just bit off the head of an Aussie. Diary of a Madman is a masterpiece. Death to the War Pigs, R.I.P. Thank you, Hillary Hinton.
I'm going to have to put together a tribute for the intermission Sunday now.
Yeah, there you go. All right. What do we got coming up here? All right. So, folks, this broke yesterday. He's a madman. Trump's team. He's a madman. That's Jamal Bowman about Putin. Trump's team frets about Netanyahu after Syria strikes. So, yes, we covered the Israeli strikes on Syria last Thursday, I believe it was. And now we're seeing within the White House, they're starting to get sick of this Netanyahu guy. As smoke and debris swirled over the Syrian presidential palace, the chatter in the West Wing grew louder. Benjamin Netanyahu is out of control. What they're saying: Bibi acted like a madman. He bombs everything all the time, one White House official told Axios, referring to Netanyahu by his nickname. This could undermine what Trump is trying to do. A second senior U.S. official also pointed to the shelling of a church in Gaza this week. which led President Trump to call Netanyahu and demand an explanation. The feeling is that every day there is something new. What the fuck? A third U.S. official said there's growing skepticism inside the Trump administration about Netanyahu, a sense that his trigger finger is too itchy and he's too disruptive. Netanyahu is sometimes like a child who just won't behave. Sounds like Trump's team. 6 U.S. officials tell Axios that despite a U.S. brokered ceasefire that halted this week's escalation in Syria on Friday, this week ended with the White House significantly more alarmed about Netanyahu and his regional policies. However, Trump has so far refrained from public criticism, and it's unclear if he shares his advisors' frustrations. It is not totally clear whether he shares his advisors' recent concerns about Israel's actions in Syria. Now, of course, what we've said in the past here is that it doesn't surprise us to learn of these sort of personal rifts between Netanyahu and Trump, just like it did not surprise us to learn of personal rifts between Netanyahu and Joe Biden. So Brian Tashman reminds us, Trump team repeating the Biden team strategy, leaking to the press to complain about Netanyahu while constantly rewarding him with money, arms, and total impunity. Exactly. There were a lot of reports about Biden being frustrated with Netanyahu. Here it is from February of 2024. Biden angry at Netanyahu, calls Prime Minister an asshole, according to NBC. Biden has said he is trying to get Israel to agree to a ceasefire, but that Netanyahu is giving him hell and is impossible to deal with. U.S. President Joe Biden called Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu a bad fucking guy, according to Politico, February of 2004. Of course, the White House denies it, just like the White House is not corroborating this reporting here. Now, if we remember, just a couple of weeks ago, Trump and Netanyahu had their powwow in Washington, D.C., which was, what was that, the third time he had visited D.C. in Trump's new term? Do you think that there could be a two-state solution, Trump asked? So let's take a replay of this.
Two-state solution that creates an independent...
I don't know. I'd ask Bibi that question. You have the greatest man in the world to answer that age-old question, two-state. Go ahead. You give him your honest answer.
I think Palestinians should have all the powers to govern themselves, but none of the powers to threaten us. And that means that certain powers, like overall security, will always remain in our hands. Now, that is a fact. And no one in Israel will agree to anything else because we don't commit suicide.
All right, just a couple of weeks ago, Gen X girl put her own commentary in there. She produced this segment for us. Shout out to her. Yes, they proposed this bunker buster act. These Israel agents in Congress really think they're clever. They've introduced a bill for the U.S. to build out the whole bunker buster capability in Israel for Israeli use with U.S. taxpayer money. Like I said, just a couple weeks ago. And now, of course, this was just yesterday. There was a fire at a church in the West Bank. Israeli authorities said they were going to look into it. They issued their report here. Contrary to misleading reports, no damage was caused to the Church of St. George in Taiba. The fire was limited to an adjacent open area, not the holy site. Emergency services received reports from local residents, including both Israelis and one Palestinian caller. The district commander has initiated a thorough investigation. If arson is confirmed, justice will be pursued regardless of race or background. Sure. Due process is based on facts, not headlines. And Mike Huckabee, who's been talking kind of tough recently about their mistreatment of Christians, says investigation reveals no damage to ancient church in Taiba, and investigation of origin of fire continues. I have not attributed the cause of fire to any person or group, as we don't know for sure. The press has. I have said that regardless, it was a crime and deserves consequences. So looks like he's towing the party line of the Israeli police. So yes, this tradition of impunity continues despite whatever rift may exist. And as we've said, over and over again, it does not surprise me at all to hear that American politicians find Benjamin Netanyahu to be a fucking piece of shit and a very difficult guy to deal with and a difficult guy to control. part of the reason why he's a difficult guy to control is because Israel seems to control us as much as we control them, right? And so that's what makes Netanyahu a very difficult person to deal with from a diplomatic standpoint for everybody. Like, that doesn't really surprise me. Oh, Biden called Netanyahu an asshole. I'm sure Biden does think Netanyahu's an asshole, just like I'm sure Donald Trump thinks Netanyahu's an asshole. We know Obama thought Netanyahu was an asshole. Nobody actually likes Netanyahu, right? This is not about personalities. It's not about how well they get along. These are two countries. One is the global superpower, and one is the proxy of that global superpower that serves as our aircraft carrier. So they pull a lot of weight. They have a lot of rope. Add the Epstein shit, whatever that's about, with Donald Trump, and they have even more rope with Trump than they do with these other leaders. And so, yeah, of course, Netanyahu is going to do as much as he can. And so when these reports come out talking about, well, the White House is getting fed up, who cares? Netanyahu doesn't care. He knows that. He knows that. He knows Biden couldn't stand him. He knows Obama couldn't stand him. He probably knows Trump can't stand him. He knows he has rope. He has a lot of room to work with here. There's a lot of options that he has because Donald Trump is especially subservient to him for reasons that we know for sure, Miriam Adelson's $100 million, and for reasons that we can be, according to Polymarket, 99% sure about vis-a-vis the Jeffrey Epstein files. And so whenever they put this stuff out, it is an effort, I think, to try and trick people into thinking that it means something, for lack of a better word here. Trump repeating the Biden team strategy. Yeah, that's what I think this is about. It's, oh, hey, we got to get this guy under control. He's out of control. Don't forget, we did a segment last show. We're going to do one next about their attack on Christians. That is really driving yet another wedge through the MAGA pro-Israel base. You had Michael Knowles, a Daily Wire host, saying, you know what? This has gone too far now because they're attacking Christians. So whenever Israel does something that is likely to turn even more people against them, you'll see whatever government is in charge here, be they Democrat or Republican, come out with some story about how, oh man, if we could only stop this madman. You just gave this madman, what was it, 5.7 billion, 3.8 billion, whatever that last thing that AOC voted for, I forget the exact dollar amount. Very easy way to control this madman. Stop giving him money. But they won't do that. They won't do that. Instead, they'll leak to the press that they're very upset with the way things are going. Meanwhile, the impunity continues.
He's a madman.
Yeah.
No, this is just a way to feign some kind of independence. I understand Netanyahu just leaked to the press that Donald Trump has no gag reflex, so they really have to distract from that. A good number of these politicians, and it looks pretty conclusively like Donald Trump, have been honeypotted. They've got really damaging information on them. And in the end, Miriam Adelson's $100 million aside, there's shit that Trump is just cannot have come to light. I swear to God, she told me she was 18. That's I don't think that's going to wash with that. And yeah, this is what they do, and people are very easily manipulated because now the media, as Axios did, they'll jump all over that story. Oh yeah, no, Trump hates Netanyahu. Of course he hates him. He's a fucking, who likes him?
Nobody likes him.
His fucking demonic. Don't be afraid of the dark wife. It might be the only person who does not hate that guy. But yeah, man, everybody hates him, and when they need to feign some kind of daylight between them and Netanyahu, they leak that to the press. Doesn't mean it's not true, but it's a very strategic revelation.
Yes, 100%. No question about that. Luis de la Cruz said, heard a segment of yours was called Pathetic. Fuck that guy. It's pathetic to expect shows to echo your belief. Don't agree with Russell's take on Sinners or his fabulous eyebrows. So there. I still don't know what segment the guy was talking about. He never gave us another Rumble rant.
You didn't like Sinners?
I guess he didn't. Jimmy Dore was on RB Ham's show. Today is the sentencing day for the two organizers of the Freedom Convoy here in Canada. They might get 7 years, yet a serial murderer got off less than a month. Oh, is that what they're talking about? Yeah, they RB mixed the time up. Yeah, they came on at 2. So I didn't watch it because we were on. I was all set to watch it at 1 o'clock, but it turns out they had a mix up. But Jimmy is on. So Otacon, thanks for the $2. Putin also said that he prefers Biden because he is more predictable than Trump. So Putin's prediction is Biden over Trump over Hillary. Yeah, I mean, I don't know the extent to which you could rely on that. I'm not sure. I'm not really sure. It's possible. It's possible. Look, Trump's whole line on Ukraine has been bullshit all along. He armed the Ukrainians in his first term. He said, under me, it would have never happened and it'll stop. It hasn't stopped. He's powerless to stop it. So, I mean, I don't know. In terms of that, to me, it's anybody's guess, honestly. But thank you, Otacon. Appreciate the super chat, or the Rumble rant, rather. John Olmsted says, I was trying to listen to you guys at work and I am fighting bad service and just stepped on a bee nest. So I'll take that as a sign I have to pay attention to the forest now. Excited to tune in this evening. Love you guys. Thank you, John. Well, where do you work? Are you a park ranger? You're at
Sounds
work
like it.
And you stepped in a bee's nest, and so now you have to pay attention to the forest. All right. Well, keep your eye on the forest. Don't miss the forest for the trees. Haha. I bet people tell you that a lot if you're a park ranger. Race car, thanks for the 780. Race car 789. Sorry, thanks for the $20. Appreciate that. How would a free tour of Israel compare to a Russell Keaton tour of New York City? Yeah, I never found out. I know a couple people who did that birthright thing, which that's not what we're talking about with the influencers. But obviously, I never went. But
it's unfortunate because I really love museums and ruins and ancient artifacts. I hope that I live to see the day that's not an apartheid state, so that I can go visit the historical sites in Israel. I would love to see that.
Right. So Russell has his own motives for helping the world. Right?
That's the main reason.
You're right.
That's my main motivation. I just want to see the museums.
That's right. All right, let's move right on along. The Pope.
The Pope. The new Pope. The Chicago Pope. Or as some call him, the deep dish Pope.
Yes.
Vatican hardens tone on Israel after Gaza parish strike. Between Mike Huckabee insulting all of the Irish as drunks who fell into a vat of Guinness this week and bombing the only Catholic church in Gaza, they're not doing very well with the Catholic community right now. An Israeli army strike on the only Catholic church in Gaza last week has pushed the Vatican to change its tone on Israel and blame it more directly in the dragging war, a break from its traditional diplomacy strategy. The strike killed 3 people in the Holy Family Church in the center of Gaza City, prompting condemnation by politicians and by religious leaders of various denominations. Pope Leo XIV on Sunday slammed the barbarity of the war and the blind use of force, denouncing the attack by the Israeli army. Now, this is much further than Francis ever went, so let's listen to a little of what he said.
I express my deep sorrow for the attack by the Israeli army on the Catholic parish of the Holy Family in Gaza City. This act, sadly, adds to the ongoing military attacks against civilian population and places of worship in Gaza. Once again, I call for an immediate end to the barbarity of war. I appeal to the international community to observe humanitarian law and respect the obligation to protect civilians, as well as the prohibition of collective punishment, of indiscriminate use of force, and forced displacement of the population. I call on to our beloved Middle Eastern Christians. I am close to you in your feeling of helplessness in the face of such a dramatic situation. You are in the heart of the Pope and of the whole church. Thank you for your witness of faith.
Per la vostra testimonianza di fede.
All right, so some pretty strong language there, and as we'll see, some of his proxies using even stronger language. On Friday, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu called Pope Leo, who became pontiff in May, and said his country deeply regrets the strike, blaming a stray missile and vowing an investigation. Now, remember, there were reports range from 450 to 600 Palestinians sheltering in that church. We can only hypothesize, but it seems like that was probably their target, the people sheltering there. Netanyahu's spokesman said the conversation was friendly and that the two men agreed to meet soon. But on the same day, in an interview with Italian broadcaster Rai 2, the Vatican's second in command, Cardinal Pietro Parolin, implied the strike may have been intentional. He called on Israel to publicize the findings of its investigation and to find out, quote, if it really was an error, which we can legitimately doubt, or if there was a will to directly attack a Christian church, unquote. The Vatican also sent the Cardinal of Jerusalem, Pier Battista Pizzaballa, the People's Pope, on a rare visit to Gaza Friday, where he visited the wounded and conducted a mass at the Holy Family Church. The Vatican, which since 2015 has recognized the state of Palestine, supports a two-state solution in Israel for now. So this is a picture of the church before on the left and after, along with Pizzaballa's initial observations. What we know for sure is that a tank, the IDF says by mistake, but we are not sure about this, they hit the church directly, the Church of the Holy Family, the Latin Church. So without directly saying it, he's kind of been saying repeatedly, yeah, this was no accident. Here he is visiting one of the parishioners who was wounded in the attack, saying the rosary with Palestinian Catholic children in Gaza. And he took a tour, according to reporting, every Christian site in Gaza has been hit. It's not just churches. Cardinal Pizzaballa visits the ruins of the Rosary Sisters School, a Catholic school in Gaza desecrated by Israeli soldiers with Hebrew graffiti and the Star of David. Even if you're going to argue, which is unconscionable, even if you're going to argue, well, the Hamas was hiding there. Well, how do you explain the graffiti? What's that about? That was strategic too?
Yeah. And by the way, sorry to talk over this, they're not saying Hamas was hiding there. They're saying it was an accident. That they didn't mean to bomb.
No, this is another site.
Oh, another site. Sorry about that. I thought you were talking about the church. Oh.
No, this is a school that they bombed.
Oh, okay. All right. Sorry about that.
He went and it's a Christian school.
Okay.
And of course, we know, putting graffiti in a Christian school that they bombed is the least of it. We saw Destiny, who, you want to talk about canceling people. Why a guy can stand in front of the IDF and say, listen, if you want to put on the women's clothing of the people that you've murdered and displaced, just don't make video. Right. Why that guy still has a platform, I have no idea. But yeah, man, you want to say, yeah, we had to, there was Hamas in there. Okay, well, how do you explain graffitiing it? What is that? Is that strategic? So he said again, they say it was a mistake, although everyone here believes that this is not the case. Going even further, Cardinal, I know I'm going to butcher this, Lojudice, that's probably close. He gave an interview with La Stampa where he really excoriated Israel in a way we have not seen anyone from the Catholic Church do before. And because he's actually very close to the new Pope, we have to assume that he's kind of speaking on his behalf and saying things that for diplomatic reasons he cannot say. So let's read some of that. Cardinal Augusto Paolo Lojudice, a judge of the Vatican Supreme Court and colleague of Leo XIV and the Curia for 5 years, compared what Israel is doing to the Palestinians in Gaza with what the Nazis did with the Jews. Some people were shocked by the use of the term genocide by Pope Francis, Lojudice said, but in Gaza, we are beyond madness. The most unbridled and illogical evil is at work. The killing of children queuing for a handful of rice cries out to God for justice. The high Catholic prelate, who is also Archbishop of Siena and Montepulciano and member of the Permanent Council of the Italian Bishops' Conference, said in an interview with the daily La Stampa that, quote, the die has been cast and any geopolitical justification has been nullified because in the face of the current escalation of atrocities, no one says anymore that it is right for Israel to defend itself. The massacre of the innocents cries out for vengeance to heaven. We can no longer hold back from denouncing it. According to Lojudice, Benjamin Netanyahu will not stop because he is a tyrant pursuing a dark and bloody plan for power. Apart from Donald Trump, who is only interested in selling weapons, no one accepts his self-legitimization anymore. And he goes on. He says, we are far beyond an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. Quote, no violence can exploit the name of God. In Jerusalem, I heard fundamentalist fringe groups using the scriptures as a shield to trample on human rights. In reality, there is no longer any way to attempt an explanation. Does a fundamentalist reading of the Bible call for the total destruction of the enemy? It is a mystification because it speaks of defeating evil, not exterminating children. When you distort the Old Testament, you make it say what you want it to say. Not all Jews do this. In Israel, fundamentalist sectors are now in command, combining fundamentalism with extreme right-wing policies in a mad quest for absolute power. The right of force humiliates the force of law. Because of foolish choices, they commit the same atrocities that were committed against them. If the tyrant is not stopped, there is no way out. Life has lost all value compared to the economic gain of the death industry and wealth used as oppression. Now that is someone speaking as a churchman. The Vatican, which since 2015 has recognized the state of Palestine, this is going back to the article, supports a two-state solution in Israel. It has also called for a special international status for Jerusalem with free and safe access to religious sites there. Now remember, this is all taking place against a backdrop of increasingly dire starvation and famine. You might recall Israel, with absolutely no evidence, accused UNRWA of being in bed with Hamas and allied with Hamas, never produced evidence to prove that, but they got their way and they drove UNRWA, one of the main organizations supporting the Palestinian population, out of Gaza, and the results are predictable. The people are dying, the people are starving to death. They lack sanitation, they lack educational resources, all of which UNRWA was providing. which a cynic might say was the reason they wanted UNRWA out of there, to exterminate the population. So this is something that kind of made the rounds, that UNRWA tweeted out in the midst of this man-made famine. UNRWA has enough food for the entire population of Gaza for over 3 months, stockpiled in warehouses, including this one in Al Arish, Egypt, awaiting entry. The supplies are available. The systems are in place. Open the gates, lift the siege, allow UNRWA to do its work, and help people in need, among them 1 million children. And this they just put out today. People in Gaza, including UNRWA colleagues, are fainting due to severe hunger. They are being starved. Meanwhile, just a few kilometers away from Gaza, supermarkets and shops are loaded with food and other goods. Lift the siege, allow UNRWA to bring in food and medicines. Even if you were to put the kindest possible interpretation on it, that Israel honestly believes UNRWA is in league with so-called terrorists. Okay, so if all that food is waiting there, why wouldn't you move heaven and earth to make arrangements for the IDF to bring that food in,
right,
to help the population? Right. If that's sitting right there, why wouldn't you do that if your objective was not genocidal?
Well, even if you did, right, even if you didn't let them in, yeah.
Let me just finish. The United Nations, Gaza, 875 people confirmed dead trying to source food in recent weeks. And we've all seen the horrible video of the results of this criminal GHF organization that the U.S. has set up with Israel to replace UNRWA, where they're literally baiting people in like rodents and killing them once they get there for food. Absolutely horrific. So this is all taking place while this is going on, and it's a big part of what's turning the world against Israel. And in particular, I mean, how long can the Catholic Church, how long can Christians support what is clearly a monstrous genocide on a scale that I think you could argue we certainly haven't seen in the 21st century, and we've rarely seen in history. So we're just going to close out with Pizzaballa speaking a bit about the man-made famine in Gaza.
Humanitarian aid is not only necessary, it is a matter of life and death. Refusing it is not a delay, but a sentence. Every hour without food, water, medicine, and shelter causes deep harm. We have seen it. Men holding out in the sun for hours in the hope of simple meal. This is a humiliation that is hard to bear when you see it with your own eyes. It is morally unacceptable and unjustifiable.
Now, I believe he's speaking from Gaza. I believe he's still there on this trip that the Pope sent him on. Yeah, Israel is betting because for 76 years they've gotten away with monstrous crimes against their neighbors. They know they have the full backing of Trump, whether because of blackmail, bribery, or a combination of both. So they're not worried about getting support cut off from the United States. Not that that would have happened under Democrats either. It certainly didn't under Biden. They just don't have to pretend with this administration. They are betting that they can just commit this genocidal campaign. And this is what we've been saying for a while. They think once we get this population cleared out, all right, you know, we'll put up a statue to the Palestinians in 50 years. There'll be a lot of hand-wringing documentaries about how terrible what we did was, but by then we'll have the land and these people will be gone. That's the bet they're making. They're going to be able to get away with it like the United States did, like Australia did. They, I think, very consciously are trying to repeat that model, thinking, later on we'll put up a plaque.
Yeah, Yeah, and as for UNRWA, yes, that's a good point. Even if you didn't trust UNRWA to go into Gaza, what about all the food? Get the IDF to bring the food. That's all. That's all.
What happened? Who's frozen? Yeah, who is it? Is it me or is it you?
No, we're back now. Both of our screens went black, right?
Oh, it was both of us?
Well, my screen went black when you were there.
You froze.
Okay, so it must have been me. It must not have been you. You never went black off your screen? You never saw any black boxes? Okay, I saw 2 black boxes, so it must have been mine that went out. That's why I gave you a call. Yeah, they claimed that 12 of the UNRWA members, 12 were combatants. 12 out of 30,000. 30,000 people work for UNRWA. That was their claim about UNRWA. And so, yes, when you see those food items stockpiled just outside of Gaza, be very easy for them to get the IDF to bring them in. I mean, it sounds crazy to just say it at this point, but that's just more evidence, irrefutable evidence of genocidal intent. And yes,
of course,
the Christian community, how could they possibly stand for this? You know, I mean, they should have been speaking out much stronger from day one. But now you start going after, you start bombing churches, you start defacing schools. Yeah, of course. Of course they are going to start talking this way. And, you know, the Pope is a very popular man around the world and in America. So this is just one more example of the tide just kind of really starting to turn in a very accelerated way. And it's obviously good that the Pope said what he said and that, you know, all the people surrounding him are starting to speak out very strongly. There's no ambiguity about how this is going to be judged in very short order.
Yes.
There's no ambiguity about that. There's no doubt about that.
I think, as I said, I don't think they're unaware of that this is going to be remembered as a monstrous crime.
Right.
I think they believe the ends justify the means, and that in the end, we'll have greater Israel, and they can make very regretful documentaries about it, but mission accomplished, and we're willing to pay that price.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. I agree. Sparky, thanks for the $10. Saw Ozzy in the 90s. Ozzy just got out of rehab. Concert was awesome. An attractive girl and her date, an innocent-looking kid, sat next to me. She whispered to me, "This isn't my boyfriend." Interesting. Went to get a beer and saw her on the way back. We took a detour behind the concession stand. A memorable concert. Got laid, too. Thanks, Ozzy, and rest in peace. All right. Thanks for that, Sparky. Good for you. All right. We're going to go on here. China Shell, R.E. Dillon, any comedian that moved to Austin to ride Rogan's coattails are, as a rule, unfunny, funny, and scum. Thank you. Hinchcliffe, Dillon, Segura, Kreischer, etc. Ham Honk, thanks for the $5. Only listened to Ozzy for a week. I was stuck in a Venezuelan island with a group of Norwegians that played Bark at the Moon on a loop. Unfair to his artistry, but left a mark. Thank you, Ham Honk. Appreciate that. Bark at the Moon! Yes. Found it. I was going to say we should find it. You know you effed up, says for Zen's sake, when the Catholic Church criticizes you for ruthlessly killing innocent people. Yes. Indeed. All right, we'll move right on along. You got 2 in a row here. So this is a tariff story, and a tariff story that most of you guys have not heard of this.
Yeah, so this caught my eye. As you know, we're imposing insane tariffs on countries around the world based on very sketchy math and premises. As near as anyone could figure, they used the fact of a deficit as evidence that the country is in some way blocking goods from the United States from coming into their country, not accounting for the fact that deeply impoverished countries are naturally not going to have the money to be importing a lot of goods from outside of their borders. For whatever reason, Lesotho got the highest tariffs of any of these African countries that got tariff, 50% tariffs. Now, you get a lot of people like to jump up and down. This is what I voted for. This is what I voted for. Well, if what you voted for is for families to starve, maybe you deserve to starve. Maybe that should happen to you and your family, because that's what's happening to people overseas, in order to give people some kind of a rush of satisfaction that other people are getting abused. Are people here going to go work in a denim factory for $160 a month? Like, is that what you want?
The working class wants to work in a denim factory. They don't care. The working class doesn't care about Lesotho.
That's a very good batya.
Yeah.
So this is from NPR. Recently did a report on this. We are on our knees. U.S. tariffs devastate Lesotho's garment workers. Crowds of women bundled up in woolly hats and mittens against the sharp winter chill wait every morning at the gates of a garment factory in Lesotho's capital, hoping that a few among them will be called in to work a shift. But no one comes out, and the factory gates, which bear the name of the Taiwanese company that runs it in red Chinese lettering, remain firmly shut. It's one of the few factories in what used to be called the denim capital of Africa that's still operating after U.S. President Donald Trump announced in April he was slapping the impoverished nation with the highest tariffs in the world. Many others have been forced to close down, with buyers spooked by the 50% tariff announcement, even though they've been paused for now. With the economy quickly unraveling, the government declared a 2-year national state of disaster in early July, hoping to unlock funding to create jobs. But the challenge is immense, and many people are already desperate. Makajela Lot Sane, come on, man, you can't blame me for mispronouncing that one.
That is
54, has been working in Maseru's garment industry for decades, a job that's allowed her to raise her children on her own. Like many here, she's a single mother who has been empowered by joining the workforce. I thought conservatives are all about that, right? Bootstraps, work for a job, dignity of labor, right? Now she's unemployed and hungry, she says, pointing to the water bottle she carries around, drinking to try to trick herself into feeling full. What food she has, she's saving for her family. Quote, I'm here looking for a job, she says, standing on the street in the garment district where the smell of sewage fills the air. My family can't survive on water alone. So here's a little video about what's going on in Lesotho as a result of these policies.
He walks through rows of unmanned sewing machines at his Lesotho textile factory. The owner of Afri Expo, which makes jeans for export, has dismissed 200 workers from his U.S.-focused production lines amid the uncertainty over U.S. President Donald Trump's tariffs.
High tariffs for Lesotho. It means we must forget about producing for U.S.
The southern African country was singled out for the highest rate back in April, 50%, baffling Lesotho officials. And while Trump suspended the application of his tariff barrage just days after his so-called Liberation Day announcement, in Lesotho, the damage was already done. This week, the Southern African Mountain Kingdom declared a national state of disaster due to the high rates of youth unemployment and job losses caused by uncertainty surrounding the tariffs. The Trump administration has defended the tariffs as reciprocal, saying that Lesotho charges 99% tariffs on U.S. goods. Lesotho officials say they do not know how the White House arrived at that figure. The U.S. State Department.
Do you understand
the
how
Lesothos are fucking us? Yeah.
Do you understand how stupid that is?
Yeah.
How stupid that is? Oh, yeah. Well, we're not selling anything to this desperately impoverished country.
Right.
They must be tariffing us 99%.
Yeah.
What the?
Department did not immediately respond to a written request for comment. Lesotho's textile sector, its leading export industry, is heavily dependent upon the African Growth and Opportunities Act. The U.S. Trade Initiative offers qualifying African nations duty-free access to the U.S. market. On the back of that preferential tariff treatment, Lesotho built a textile sector that, until now, was the country's biggest private employer. The sector provided some 40,000 jobs and accounted for roughly 90% of manufacturing exports, according to Oxford Economics. Now, that's all changed. Among those out of a job is Dimpo Lefalatsa. Her monthly factory wage of around $168 had supported her, sent her 12-year-old daughter to school, and paid for her elderly grandmother's medicine.
When we first heard of it, it started as a rumor. It was months, then weeks. But when the time approached, the truth started sinking in. It was like I was insane. I felt helpless.
Okay, now part of the reason this story caught my eye is because you could not find a better demonstration of the game that's being played on the working class and working people who are desperate to improve their conditions. They could either have you looking at people like Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, Donald Trump, Bill Gates, who hardly pay any taxes relative to what you pay in taxes, or they could have you getting mad at somebody who's making $160 in an African country as if that's the reason your life sucks. So what do you think they're going to use their tremendous control over media and communications to do? They've hypnotized you, man. They brainwashed you. They brainwashed you into getting mad at people with no money and no power. You want that job? You want that job? No, you're not going to work. You're not going to do that job for $160 a month. So what do you think is going to be accomplished here? Right. Why make these people starve? Why make these people suffer like this? For what? For what? For what purpose? The idea that these jobs are going to come over here, that's a fantasy. That's a fantasy. And every single time they ask Besant, they ask Pigman Lutnick, so what are these factories going to be like? Immediately they start gushing about automation and AI. Like they can't help themselves. They shouldn't say it, but they do. It's the first thing they say when they get asked about that. Automation and AI. Even if they brought the factories here, you're not going to be working in them.
Yeah, didn't Charlie Kirk tweet out a picture of an apple picking robot that went down through the orchards and picked the apples off the trees? Yeah. So
he was very excited about it.
If Kirk is saying it, that means it's coming from the government.
Yeah,
he brags about it.
He didn't think through the implications of sending that out, apparently.
Right. Yeah. So, it's all rooted in this delusion, this fantasy that there is this sleeping giant of, yes, white workers. Don't tell me they care if they're interested in a multiracial working class movement. You have second-generation Somali Americans born in Minnesota because a lot of their parents came over in the 90s to flee the war. Those are now American citizens. One of them runs for mayor in Minnesota, talking about kind of the same thing that Mamdani's talking about, rent freezes, wage hikes, blah, blah, blah. And they say, this is why we can't let foreigners run for office. So come on. I mean, what they are proposing, and the Chinese actually, if you remember a few months back, the Chinese started making these AI videos trolling the U.S. by, creating these images and videos of overweight white workers making shoes in factories as if that's going to happen. It's not going to happen. Now, you could say, well, they'll do it if you pay them enough. Well, by definition, if you pay someone enough, they'll do anything. They're not interested in paying you enough. They'd rather make less shoes. They'd rather make less jeans and charge more for what they bring to market. There is no world in which whatever company outsources. I won't name a jean company because I don't know which denim companies outsource there. But there is no world in which those companies bring those jobs here and start paying Americans $50 an hour to make jeans. That is not going to happen. And they fucking know that. Batya Ungar-Sargon, the crying phony, she knows that. They all know that. This is just a fucking grift. It's just a game to them.
All they're doing is creating more incentive, as we will see a little bit at the end of this segment, for the world to figure out an alternative economy that doesn't include the United States and alternative payment systems that don't include the dollar. That's the upshot of the effect of this.
Right.
But part of what's so unfair about this is Lesotho. Is that how you say it? Lesotho actually developed this industry because of U.S. policy that encouraged them to become dependent on these industries. The U.S. leader says he imposed the tariffs in April because of a trade imbalance between the two countries. Last year, the tiny mountain kingdom, surrounded entirely by South Africa, exported $237 million in goods to the U.S., mostly garments, while the U.S. exported just $3 million to Lesotho. But Lesotho's government argues this is a sign that a key U.S. policy introduced under former President George Bush has been working exactly as intended. The African Growth and Opportunity Act allows some countries on the continent tariff-free access to the U.S. market. Lesotho made the most of it, and soon Taiwanese companies were setting up factories in Maseru, producing T-shirts, sportswear, and other apparel for large American brands like Levi, Wrangler, and Walmart.
All right, so we'll name names. Levi, Wrangler, and Walmart.
Well, now they've been named. African leaders are nervous because Congress will be deciding on whether to renew 25-year-old AGOA in September, but Lesotho's trade minister, Mukethi Shalili, says it's already basically dead. AGOA, in effect, it's already sort of been scrapped with the tariffs, he told NPR in his office in an unassuming old building in Maseru's small, dusty CBD. It's good value chain, and if you cut it, it will surely hit even the U.S. itself, said the minister, adding that the trade imbalance Trump objects to is because Lesotho simply can't afford many U.S. products. Now, this is kind of part of a pattern with the Trump administration and with the U.S. generally. You can't rely on our military commitments because we'll sign an agreement with you. Yeah, you get rid of your weapons program and you're not going to get invaded, and you wind up as Gaddafi did with a knife up your ass. And now this is extending to the economic realm, where people have depended on our guarantees economically. And now they're being shown dealing with the United States. It's a fool's errand because you just don't know what the U.S. is going to do. Now, again, not to put that all on Trump, in the economic realm, one of the worst things the Biden administration did was to use their power over the SWIFT payment system to sanction Russia, because that put the whole world on alert that the United States was not going to honor the underlying premises of the Bretton Woods system, where the dollar would be, for Game of Thrones geek, the Iron Bank. We would be the neutral arbiter that would facilitate economic activity without any kind of favor to any particular nation. We blew that up, which has been giving a lot of incentive to BRICS primarily to figure out a way around the Bretton Woods system. So this is what they've been basing their industrial policy on, the AGOA. Since its enactment in 2000, the African Growth and Opportunity Act has been at the core of U.S. economic policy and commercial engagement with Africa. AGOA provides eligible sub-Saharan African countries with duty-free access to the U.S. market for over 1,800 products, in addition to the more than 5,000 products that are eligible for duty-free access under the Generalized System of Preferences program. To meet AGOA's rigorous eligibility requirements, countries must establish or make continual progress toward establishing a market-based economy, the rule of law, political pluralism, and the right to due process. Additionally, countries must eliminate barriers to U.S. trade and investment, enact policies to reduce poverty, combat corruption, and protect human rights. 32 countries are eligible for AGOA benefits in 2024. In 2015, Congress passed legislation modernizing and extending the program to 2025. So why would countries want to deal with the United States after they've met the requirements for this agreement, completely organize their economies around this agreement? And now Trump comes in and goes, yeah, no, we're going to give you a 50% tariff. Fuck you. You can starve. Hey, but there's an alternative increasingly for a lot of these countries. What's China doing? China ready to drop all tariffs on African imports. So who are you going to do business with? Are you going to do it the crazy Americans or the Chinese, who don't seem to have any particular interest in militarily involving themselves in your country? Getting involved with your government seems a lot more stable as a government than the United States in terms of its policy outlook. And speak of the devil, yuan payment system makes inroads in Africa. Standard Bank and Afrex. Hang on, I got to blow that up, Tarina. Afrex Imbank joined the Chinese SWIFT alternative. So you're getting more and more countries are getting in on a system where they can get around the dollar and deal with the yuan. For a very long time, people have said, well, there's no alternative to the dollar. You know, that may be so, but necessity is the mother of invention. If you make people desperate enough, they'll find a way. They're going to figure out a way. All you have to do is open your eyes to see that BRICS is pointing the way towards a very different world. And everything this administration is doing is pushing the world further in that direction. These African countries are going to suffer greatly under this regime. And once they have reoriented themselves towards more reliable partners, that ship's gone. With a new administration, it's not going to matter. No. At that point, they're going to remember starving in the streets because of the Americans elected this lunatic. And then if we go in another direction, no, we're good, man. We got a good deal with China. We're happy. Sure. We're all right.
Right. I mean, they would have already made that switch, and plus, we can't be trusted not to go down this path again. Yeah, no, look, like I said, a few minutes ago, this is all just based in delusion and fantasy, not only delusion about the capabilities that we have here at home or the willingness of corporations to pay Americans high wages to do these kinds of jobs, which of course they're not, but the delusion that we are still an indispensable superpower. Right. I mean, we are the superpower, but we're making ourselves less and less indispensable with each move like this, right? It's not the case that the world simply cannot and will not go on without us if they have to. Of course they will. Of course they will. No nation is truly indispensable at the end of the day in that way. And we're acting as though we are. It's very dogmatic. A dogma never makes for good policy decisions. And this is certainly an example of that. And we've been in this country so conditioned to think of American interaction with the rest of the world as one of, domination and subjugation, because that's what it's been, to the point where it doesn't even occur to us that actually you could work with the rest of the world to develop places like Africa, which China has done. And there is an interest for us in doing that because you don't want places around the world to crumble into despair and poverty That's
Right.
what creates violence. That's what creates epidemics of disease that, of course, travel around the world.
That's what
because
creates
disease
migrants.
is contagious, and it creates, yes, migration crises. Exactly. So, no, it's just, it's completely idiotic at best.
When you look at the ultimate outcome of these kinds of policies, and you imagine where it takes the United States, you wind up with an isolated banana republic, very much like the way that we always thought of like countries behind the Iron Curtain. That's what it's turning into. You're going to have an impoverished fascist country run by oligarchs and terrorized by a national police force.
Right, exactly. All right, folks, we are going to take a quick moment here to feature our supporters on the supporter scroll. So, hey, we could not do this show without our members. So if you enjoy what we do here and you want to help us do more of it, you could do so by becoming a member at dudissidents.com/Patreon. You could follow any one of those three links, Patreon, Substack, or Locals. That is how you sign up to become a member for just $5 a month. Perks of membership include call-in access to all our post-show Q&As, which happen once a week. We're also going to be doing our members-only post-game. Should we do that this Thursday? Should probably do that this Thursday.
We were going to, right?
Yeah. So Thursday's show will be one of these instances once a month where we will do most of the segments for everybody, but then we will switch over to a members-only stream for the final couple segments of the show, and then we will take your calls. So Thursday will be a special members-only show where members will get a special link to a stream that runs parallel to this one, and then the last few segments of Thursday's show will be for members only. Plus, we will take your calls after the show. So that's coming up this Thursday at 12 p.m. You also get a film club live stream once a month. Also, you get ad-free versions of all of these live streams emailed to you the day after they air. So if you miss a show or you only catch part of it and you don't want to watch it back with the ad interruptions on the platforms, you could watch it ad-free. All that for just $5 a month or $50 a year if you sign up annually at Substack or Locals, which gets you 2 free months, oddly enough. So that is what keeps the show going. Your membership is what allowed us to hire Gen X Girl as a segment producer, which makes it a lot easier for us to do the other work that we are doing for the project. So you guys, like I said, are the backbone of the show. We thank you very much for your support. All right, let's take some more super chats here. Andy Gardner says, I'm just now getting the feeling after much thought that Russ isn't exactly on board with Taibbi of late. Well, not of late.
It's sad, man. It's a sad situation.
Michael Castillo, thanks for the $5. Via Aaron Mate, Ukraine has lost 40% of its working population since Russia invite. That does not surprise me. YepX, thanks for the $10. Say, please attempt to reach out to Alexander from the Marx Engels Lenin Institute, Kit Clarenberg, and Jody Prar to talk about communism. Also, Steve from the Macro and Cheese podcast to talk about MMT. I never heard of the Macro and Cheese podcast. Thank you for that. Habib, thanks for the $10. Says, both of you and your families are welcomed in Palestine. We will love to have you. Palestine will need people like you. Well, that's very kind of you to say, Habib. Thank you. Where in Palestine are you from? I would love to know that. Thank you for that. That's very kind to say. Eric Torres, at this point, Americans just want to be lied to. Yeah, exactly. Well, I think that explains a lot of it.
Yeah.
You know. All right. El Corey says, apropos of nothing, could you please explain the contradiction? Biden had encouraged undocumented people to come into the country, and he had deported more people than Trump. What's up with that? Well, I think they turned more people away at the border. I know Kamala was sent to Guatemala, telling people do not come. So, you know, I mean, what I would say to that is I think a lot of the migration north happened because immigrants expected it to be easier to get across than under Trump. And so that just caused a lot of volume. I mean, that's what we had when we had Ellen Jimerson, our friend and patron here, and Todd Miller on to talk about her documentary. Miller made it sound like it was just a problem of like volume. Like, it's not that there's literally an open border where under Biden they just, doors open, come in. Just they were overwhelmed with volume. That's what it made it sound like, and I don't have reason to doubt that. And then obviously these raids under Trump, you're talking about what are they talking about? What was it? 55,000 a day under Trump, 40,000 a day in ICE detention under Biden. So this is an increase, but it's not worlds different. I mean, ICE has been operational, like I said, since 2003. A lot of what the Democrats did vis-a-vis immigration is, what has culminated thus far in this. All right. What else we got going on here? Okay. Oh, we're going to talk about the Democrats now. All right, folks. A couple of fun ones for you all. So the Democrats are trying to get to the bottom of what happened in 2024. And the Nation put out an op-ed here. The Democratic Party remains committed to learning nothing from its 2024 defeat. The Democratic National Committee's forthcoming autopsy is a cover-up to protect the failed leaders who twice lost to Trump. So this is from The Nation. The Democratic Party elite in the last decade had not reacted to two crushing losses to Donald Trump in presidential elections with the spirit of candid self-criticism. Rather, party leaders have preferred to indulge in self-exculpation and find scapegoats for their own failures. In 2017, Vox reported that, quote, Hillary Clinton doesn't believe she or her campaign made any significant mistakes in the 2016 election. But speaking at the Code Conference on Wednesday, she had a long list of others she blames for her defeat. She points the finger at who? Russia, of course. That was really what explained Russiagate. Fake news, the sorry state of the Democratic Party, sexism, and the media that covered the email scandal like Pearl Harbor, among others. Strikingly, the Clinton campaign never released a formal post-mortem on the 2016 election, which left the party with an array of partial reports from divergent groups offering competing explanations that were little more than factional briefs. With the 2024 defeat, the DNC has commissioned an autopsy, which is currently being prepared by Paul Rivera, a longtime party insider. There is, alas, no reason to hope for much from this forthcoming post-mortem. On Saturday, the New York Times reported that this will follow the Clintonian model of avoiding self-criticism and instead blame convenient scapegoats, that it is expected to mostly steer clear of the decisions made by the Biden-turned-Harris campaign and will focus more heavily instead on actions taken by allied groups. Instead of focusing on decisions made by Harris, Biden, and their key advisors, the report is preparing to make a scapegoat of Future Forward, a super PAC that spent $560 million on the election. The indictment is that Future Forward focused excessively on TV ads, didn't coordinate messaging with the Harris campaign, and didn't do enough attacks on Trump. The problem with this narrative is that even if one stipulates for the sake of argument that every accusation against Future Forward is true, it doesn't really explain the scale of the 2024 defeat. To write about the 2024 without talking about the decisions made by Biden, Harris, and their inner circle is, as the Times suggests, like eating at a steakhouse and then reviewing the salad. Yes, that is very well put. The upcoming DNC autopsy is shaking up to be an exercise in deflection, distraction, and scapegoating. A more honest autopsy would run something like this. The original sin of the campaign was Joe Biden's decision to run again, despite polling repeatedly showing voters thought he was too old and frail for the job. This decision disillusioned voters and made Donald Trump a plausible alternative. Yes, of course. Remember June 27th, less than 30 minutes in, and this election is over. This was really the moment that marked the beginning of the end for the Biden campaign.
Continue to strengthen our healthcare system, making sure that we're able to make every single solitary person eligible for what I've been able to do with the with the COVID. With dealing with everything we have to do with, look, if we finally beat Medicare.
Thank you, President Biden. President Trump.
Oh, wow.
He's right. He did beat Medicare. He beat it to death, and he's destroying Medicare.
Yeah, he beat it to death. Trump thinking on his feet there. So bad, obviously, the White House famously put this ad out.
White House Senior Living. Our residents
Or the
feel
Trump
right at
campaign
home.
put this out about the White House.
Our vibrant facility offers delightful activities and outings, round-the-clock professional care, and exquisite house-made meals.
Well, I've been eating everything that's put in front of me. I've been eating all Italian food.
And ice cream.
And ice cream, chocolate chip ice cream.
White House Senior Living.
I never saw that.
Where residents
Oh, you never saw
feel
that?
like presidents.
Yeah, no, Trump truthed
That's pretty
that
funny.
out.
That's
Yes,
pretty
no,
funny.
they had their pretty good troll game working. When Biden finally dropped out, Kamala Harris initially won a wave of support from those disillusioned voters, but she frittered it away by refusing to dissociate herself from Joe Biden's unpopular policies, including for a crucial block of younger voters, Biden's unwavering support of Israel's horrific Gaza onslaught, which you see actually, I think you see how many votes they left on the table by embracing Israel to the extent that they did in Mamdani's win. I think what the Mamdani win in New York proved is that, no, there actually were a lot of people who could have been animated by that had you reined Israel in. But they made, of course, the calculated decision not to do that. Not only did they not do that, here are the Democratic delegates and bigwigs outside of the Chicago convention. Here is their response to protesters, the pro-Palestine protesters.
Say it again. Say it again. Mock them again. Mock the children again. Do it again. Do it again.
18 years old. 18 years old. Yusuf Hassan. 18 years old. Turn around and
See, that should be in the autopsy. That should be in the post-election
You would think.
report.
You would think.
What about this? Kamala responds.
Our delegates are repulsive.
Yes,
now, we're
right,
not sure
exactly.
what we can do about that.
That's right. Kamala responds to pro-Palestinian protesters in Pennsylvania, shouting Kamala supports genocide and fuck you at a rally in PA. This is, of course, how she handled that.
Pledge to seek common ground and common sense solutions to the challenges you face. Let me say something. We are 6 days out of an election. We are 6 days away from an election. And ours is about a fight for democracy and your right to be heard. Look, everybody has a right to be heard, but right now I am speaking.
I am speaking. That's right. Now, this is a good find here. Good find by Gen X girl here. I had not heard this before, but Sabby Sabs originally tweeted this out. So this is in October. It's right down the home stretch. A caller asks Kamala about sending money to other countries versus taking care of Americans. So this is a caller into the Breakfast Club show.
For Kamala is, why are we, and I say we because my tax dollars is sending the money, why are we sending money to other countries when we desperately need it in our own country for homeless, housing, resources, for whatever? That is my determining factor if I vote for Kamala or not.
Okay, so their answer is, why are we sending all this money overseas when we need it back here? Now, what's funny about this, and this just shows what an absolutely horrible candidate Kamala was, is Charlemagne butts in and tries to coach her through a good answer here. He says, listen.
That's one of the reasons the America First rhetoric resonates, because nobody in America would complain about where money was going if American citizens' everyday needs were being met. So what do you say to that?
We can do it all, and we do.
So he says, we could do it. He jumps in and, as a way of saying to her live on air, okay, now give a good answer here, because this is a real sentiment out there that people are hurting, and we're sending all this money to Israel, basically. So just so you know, take this one seriously. Don't give a flippant non-answer.
America would complain about where money was going if American citizens' everyday needs were being met. So what do you say to that?
We can do it all, and we do.
Okay. All right. Guess that advice went in one ear and out the other. Yeah, so the fact that they are looking to pin this on the failings of a super PAC for misallocation of resources is a version of the old Democrat argument that it's the messaging. No, it's not the messaging. It's who you are and what you represent. As you could see right there, people screaming about Gaza, about Palestine, all through the campaign. Polling indicated that the number one reason why people who voted Biden in 2020 did not vote Kamala in 2024 was because of support for Israel, which she promised, of course, would not change, and was very dismissive of people who asked, hey, why are we sending this money to Israel when we can put it here? Very dismissive of protesters at repeat rallies, disrupting her, shouting her down with Free Palestine type chants. And so the fact that they are looking to essentially look past the failings of Kamala Harris and Joe Biden and instead sort of, chalk this up to, unwise spending of money by a big super PAC is, of course, just laughable. It's laughable. Now, what I will say is, to play devil's advocate, I don't think you need to spend that much time if your goal of doing an autopsy is to figure out where the party needs to go moving forward. I don't think you have to spill that much ink over how bad Joe Biden and Kamala Harris were, or Hillary Clinton for that matter. I mean, when you think about this, what this story made me think about is, think of the last time the Democrats nominated someone who didn't make your toes curl with cringe whenever they opened their mouth. That was 2012. That's the last time they had a candidate who was even serviceable.
It was not repulsive.
It was not repulsive. You look at a guy like John Ossoff. I haven't paid much attention to him or what his politics are. He's had a couple of viral moments recently talking about anti-corruption and this and that. I'm not going to say one way or another. Odds are he's a piece of shit. But you can watch John Ossoff speak for 15 seconds without having giving yourself a Charlie horse.
Viscerally negative reaction.
Yeah, it's been so long since they had someone who just didn't make you throw up in your mouth the second they open theirs. Now, once again, if you're writing if your goal is to steer the party in a certain direction, yeah, do you need to write 500 pages on the personal failings of Kamala Harris and Joe Biden? No, but you do have to spill a lot of ink on the party apparatus that elevated these people who had no business being elevated to those roles within the party. And you also have to look at, okay, what did it take to keep Joe Biden as insulated from this pressure to drop out for so long, which we're going to get a little more into in the next segment in very comedic fashion with the Hunter Biden interview that he gave to Channel 5. But basically, you have right now a party infrastructure that I won't even say prioritizes, that just stands for career elevation and ladder climbing at the expense of literally everything else. That's why no one was around who could actually impart any kind of wisdom on any of these leaders, because nobody wanted to hear it. Nobody wanted to hear it. And so if you're going to do an autopsy, do we really need to hear that Joe Biden's brains were mush? No, but you need to hear about why it was so impossible for anybody to even get a hearing when they suggested he shouldn't run again. Simone Sanders, it's an open and shut. Well, there's not going to be a primary because they don't want one, right? That's what you need to be looking at, because you're coming up on, after the midterms, it's going to be yet another primary season. And what an event that is shaping up to be so far. It'll be interesting to see how the party reacts to some of these younger people who are going to be able to at least run, for the first time in a while in a primary that I won't say they won't rig it. Who knows who they'll rig it for? There's not a clear anointed person, right? In 2020, Biden was the clearly anointed person. He wouldn't have lasted 6 weeks in that primary if he weren't being propped up. Hillary Clinton, 2016, we know how that went, and then this ended up being a nightmare. And that's one more thing. I know I'm going on a little long, but the other thing you have to examine is if you didn't want Kamala to succeed Biden, which a lot of the party bosses didn't, then why was she elevated to vice president in the first place?
Well,
that
they
ended
did
up being
want
a
her to succeed
disastrous
Biden.
decision. They didn't. Yeah. Obama wanted somebody else. Even Pelosi wanted somebody else. So then why did she get picked for vice president? Because you knew there was a strong possibility that Biden wasn't going to be able to go the distance.
No, some didn't, but they did, more broadly speaking.
Right.
The reason they cannot interrogate their failings is because the party is still run by the same people who caused it, and it's not simply willful avoidance. It's also complete unsuitability to do that kind of analysis. They lack that kind of self-awareness to really interrogate what's wrong with the Democratic Party. They'd have to be honest in a way that would indict most of the people who still run the party today and acolytes of those people, like, why did we pick Hillary Clinton before anybody voted?
Right.
They'd have to get back into that kind of thing. They'd have to really take apart the whole way that they select candidates. And going to your point, they haven't had a candidate that doesn't make you want to lose your lunch since 2012. Well, there's a reason for that. And we saw it very clearly in the DNC chair race, almost a caricature of this reality. The Clinton ascension signaled the triumph of the so-called new left with its fixation on identity politics as the definition of leftism. And the reason this got elevated is it opened up the floodgates of Wall Street money. This is the reason that this niche academic obsession with identity and race and gender and sexuality got elevated to such a prominent place in Democratic Party politics. Is you can have those politics without it putting you at a financial disadvantage. You can soak up all the Wall Street money you want. They don't care. You could have a pride parade every day of the year as long as it's not costing them any money. In fact, they kind of like that because rich people very often are looking for a way to justify their wealth by cloaking themselves in virtue. In former times, they would do that by endowing churches, by demonstrating themselves as very religious and very pious. So giving them some kind of a secular religion to cloak themselves in, to wrap themselves in a cloak of virtue while raping the country and raping the treasury. That was a perfect ideology. It was a perfect marriage of interests. But the kind of party and the kind of people who result from that, not just within the political realm. This is what happened largely in entertainment. It's what destroyed a lot of these formerly indestructible franchises under Disney and others. The people who got elevated to the top came up in this university system that had completely torched economic analysis as a basis of progressivism and entirely embraced identitarianism. The kinds of people who are attracted to those kinds of politics and the kinds of people that those kinds of politics produce in turn are repulsive people. They're repulsive people. That's why the libs are so off-putting. When you sit down, you have a conversation with them, it's like they relentlessly insist on defending these virtue signaling gestures that pervade a culture that is designed to appeal specifically to them. And that is really key to what elevated Donald Trump and his ilk, who are also repulsive, but they're repulsive in a way that's less aggressively offensive to most people, because it's designed to pretend to be one of the people. Whereas what the Democratic Party has become is very much the product of the kind of elite academic idea of progressivism that's left when you eliminate the point of view of workers and unions from your politics.
Well, yeah, which is why, Obama's line throughout his presidency is simply that you must go to school and get a 4-year degree because we are the new ordinary people, right? We are the
so
new
you can be
ordinary
one
people.
of us.
Right. So you can be one of us because we're normal and you're not normal unless you're like us, right? And so, yeah, no, that does definitely inform a lot of it. So yeah, I mean, when it's almost farcical it's almost farcical that they didn't outsource this to someone else. Like, why are you getting Paul Rivera, who's they're
afraid of what they would say
because they're afraid of what they would say. If they were serious, you know what they would do is they would basically commission a study the way they were going to give that girl $20 million to find out how to win the men back. They would do something like that. But for ordinary people, they would hire, frankly, you know what they would do? They would hire guys like us, not that we would do it, but they'd hire people in this kind of space, activists, alternative media people to come and do like a conference. And it would basically be a giant like struggle session for them. Okay, this is why you suck. This is what you have to do to not suck anymore. That would make a modicum of sense. To keep this in-house, well, you may as well not do it. Of course, what we said, it's all about careerism. They don't want to outsource it. It's all gig flow. That's all the party is. And so we will have a piece on Hunter Biden coming up next, which is he gives his take on them, which is pretty great. But before we do that, just pause briefly here for a word from Rumble Premium. So, folks, this sponsorship is from Rumble, and it's one that's incredibly important to the survival of the company. So when Rumble first started in 2013, they built the platform for the small creator. They didn't censor or have biases. They were fair and treated all creators equally. No one thought platforms would censor political conversations or opinions on issues like COVID, but they did, and Facebook actually admitted they fell to such pressure from the Biden and Harris administration. But Rumble did not. They have held the line consistently through thick and thin, and for it, they are attacked daily for giving shows like us a voice to talk to audiences like you. They're attacked in corporate media, by governments like France, and from brand advertisers who largely refuse to work with them. So while corporate America is fighting to remove speech, Rumble is fighting to keep it. But they won't survive with brand advertisers alone because they don't get many of them. So watching our show on Rumble is the most they can ask from you, but if you really believe in the fight and you have the means, one major way you can help Rumble survive is by joining Rumble Premium, which is the ad-free version of the Rumble platform. So join the community that believes in the First Amendment and believes in our human right to free speech. Rumble is offering $10 off with the promo code STUDIO when you purchase an annual subscription. So go to rumble.com/premium and use promo code STUDIO. Like I said, if you have the means and believe in the cause, now's the time to join Rumble Premium. If you don't have the means, we're, of course, just happy if you watch us on the platform. Okay. Are we good?
Yeah, we're good, right?
Are we here? Yeah.
Yeah. You hear me?
Right? Yeah, we're here.
Yeah, we're all right.
Yeah. No, when I clicked out of the ad read, it just, the big sign came up on the screen that said, oops, something went wrong. So I don't like to hear that. Yeah. So I just hope that the streaming didn't crash out. A lot of technical bugs today. Kind of weird. Kind of weird. All right. Looks like we're still on.
It's the Mossad.
Yeah, exactly. Still on YouTube, still on Rumble. All right, beautiful. All right, we're good. Okay. All right, great. All right. Let's move right on into the B segment, and then we'll stop for chats before the final segment of the day. So Democrats are doing their post-mortem on the 2024 campaign, but Hunter Biden has his own ideas. Hunter Biden takes on George Clooney and presidential debate and interview. They should hire this guy to do the post-mortem. It'd be a fun time. Yeah. Hunter Biden has given a profanity-laced 3-hour interview to the U.S. outlet Channel 5, which is, what is his name, Andrew Callahan, that is remarkable for its no-holds attack on actor George Clooney denial that he was the source of cocaine found in the White House, and thoughts on why his father bombed in his debate with Donald Trump before dropping out of his presidential re-election run. Fuck him, the younger Biden said of Clooney, whose remarkable New York Times opinion piece last July called on the Democratic Party, for which the actor is a financial donor, to find a new nominee. So this was 3 hours and 15 minutes, this interview, and Callahan did not bookmark it. So I did not watch the whole thing. So we're going to go based on what went kind of viral online, and there were a few different pieces of this that went pretty viral. So here he is being asked about George Clooney.
But fuck him. Fuck him. Fuck him and everybody around him. I don't have to be fucking nice. Number one, I agree with Quentin Tarantino. Fucking George Clooney is not a fucking actor. He is a fucking, I don't know what he is. He's a brand. And by the way, and God bless him. You know what? He supposedly treats his friends really well. You know what I mean? Buys them things. And he's got a really great place in Lake Como. And he's great friends with Barack Obama. Fuck you. What do you have to do with fucking anything? Why do I have to fucking listen to you? What?
You know, you don't really hear Hunter talk that much because black sheep of the family, they kind of keep him under wraps. But it's amazing how much he really does sound like his father.
Oh, yeah. That's what strikes you in this. Yeah, he sounds
not just
like
the same voice, but same manner of speech, same rhythm of speech.
Right do you have to step on a man who's given 52 years of his fucking life to the service of this country and decide that you, George Clooney, are going to take out basically a full-page ad in the fucking New York Times to me and James Carville, who hasn't run a race in 40 fucking years, and David Axelrod, who had one success in his political life, and that was Barack Obama. And that was because of Barack Obama, not because of fucking David Axelrod. And David Plouffe, and all of these guys, and the Pod Save America guys, who were junior fucking speechwriters in, on Barack Obama's Senate staff, who have been dining out on the relationship with him for years, making millions of dollars.
Get
the
'em.
Rita Dunns of the world, who's made $40, $50 million off
Cook.
the Democratic Party. They're all going to insert their judgment over a man who has figured out, unlike anybody else, how to get elected to the United States Senate over 7 times, how to pass more legislation than any president in history, how to have a better midterm election than anybody in history, and how to garner more votes than any president that has ever run. And they're going to replace their judgment for his.
Okay, so, I mean, look, obviously his veneration of his father is delusional, as is his insistence that, no, Biden was fine, he was the best candidate.
Right.
Aside from that, like, what he says about these apparatchiks, these fucking losers around Barack Obama is true. You know, these guys had their whole careers made for them by the charisma of Barack Obama.
Right.
Is David Axelrod a genius? Or did he attach himself
or
to
James Carville, for that matter?
Right, or James Carville, because, you know, Bill Clinton and Barack Obama were both very talented politicians who ended up elevating these fucking morons around them who we all hung on their every word. Oh, what is Carville, a brilliant strategist? He's not a brilliant strategist. Who says Axelrod's a brilliant strategist?
Well,
or
the
any
proof
of these
is
people,
in the
Pod
pudding.
Save
These
people.
guys have been wrong ever since.
Right, ever since
fucking
they've been
wrong
on a
about
losing streak.
everything.
Exactly. It's just been one string of losses ever since.
Not to mention, who's Jake Tapper's audience? Jake Tapper?
My mom or something? I don't know.
Well, I don't know.
Yeah.
For real, though. I don't even think it's your mom anymore.
No.
By the numbers, what influence does Jake Tapper have over anything? He has the smallest audience on cable news. And beyond that, I think that the book is right now on Amazon that he put out. I mean, his ratings just went to shit after he put the book out. You know, they did a 2-week infomercial for it. I mean, it was such a money grab, such a disservice to everybody that he serves with.
Okay, so you're starting to get a sense.
I mean, I didn't know that, but it makes sense because who's the audience for Jake Tapper?
Oh,
Libs.
of course.
They didn't want to hear that.
No, of course. They don't want to hear that. They don't want to hear
It's
that.
not
No.
like all of a sudden you're going to pick up the Biden haters watching Jake Tapper.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. You're also starting to get a sense of why it was so difficult to get him out of the race, because his family surrounded him. You imagine this guy being quite difficult to deal with. Hunter Biden shared with the Channel 5 outlet his belief that Clooney was upset at Joe Biden, 82, because the former president had criticized the International Criminal Court's decision to obtain an arrest warrant for the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu on war crime charges. The human rights lawyer Amal Clooney, who is married to the actor, was one of the legal experts who recommended that the ICC seek the warrant. He was bitching to the White House staff, the senior staff, that he was so angry that the president would criticize the arrest warrant Hunter Biden said. He was very, very angry that my dad did not pay homage to her or something. Yeah, I think that is delusional. I don't think that
cope.
is. Yeah, that is cope. That is cope. And like I said, I'm not saying this to elevate Hunter Biden, and that is obviously a bit of cope there. Biden's interview to Channel 5, a popular YouTube channel created by Andrew Callahan, comes as U.S. House Republicans pursue investigations into his father's presidency. Congressional Republicans have been claiming that the former president's closest advisors covered up a physical and mental decline during his presidency and criticizing his preemptive pardons of family members, including Hunter, after Trump threatened to prosecute his opponents as he captured the Oval Office again in November. So here is the portion of the interview where Hunter claims that Joe Biden was on Ambien the night of that fateful debate.
That's a new one.
Debate. He flew around the world, basically, and the mileage that he could have flown around the world 3 times. Yeah. He's 81 years old. He's tired as shit. They give him Ambien to be able to sleep. He gets up on the stage, and he looks like he's a deer in the headlights.
Well, that's the first we've heard of that. That he was on Ambien that night. We always assume they gave him a drug cocktail to snap him out of that stupor.
Yeah.
Not that the stupor itself was drug-induced. So obviously no corroboration there. But this made a stir. So Tommy Vietor, who is part of the crooked media empire which produces Pod Save America, apparently he co-hosts Pod Save America and Pod Save the World, and a former Obama national security staff. It's so good to see that Hunter has taken some time to process the election, look inward, and hold himself accountable for how his family's insular, dare I say arrogant at times, approach to politics led to this catastrophic outcome we're all now living with. Yeah, this is why you're not seeing any, homages to Joe Biden, or saw very little celebration of the great career, life, and legacy of Joe Biden on the way out the door. There's obviously a lot of
none
hatred.
of that.
Yeah, none of that. None whatsoever. So this is on a different podcast, obviously, but this clip surfaced at the same time. Hunter admits that Nancy Pelosi was the one who drove his dad out of the race. They already made a decision. They clearly made a decision. When I say they, I mean the speaker, which Pelosi was not technically the speaker, but that's what he's talking about.
The speaker emeritus that would say, well, I'm going to leave it up to, but I don't know. And they had already made a decision. They had clearly made a decision. And when I say they, I mean the speaker. And, I heard Alexander Pelosi say something, call my put your big girl pants on to my mom or something. And I kind of feel like saying, who the fuck do you think you are? I would never speak about your mom that way. Yeah. I would never speak about your father that way. I would never insult your parents that way. Even to this day, I would never...
who the fuck do you think you are? Yeah, no, this guy has some feelings, has some pretty strong words. And, that visual made me realize, you know what? There's good news here. The left has found its Joe Rogan. That's what I tweeted out. Yes. They got their Joe Rogan. There you go. He's the guy hidden in plain sight all along. I know the apostrophe S was there. It's an autocorrect, and they kept autocorrecting it even after I would tweet it out. So I tweeted that out. I realized it had the apostrophe S, which is the wrong version of its. So I deleted it immediately. I posted it again. It's still posted that way. So I don't know what happened there. Whatever. But the sentiment, you could see, yes, that's the left's Joe Rogan right there. And what do I mean by that? Well, let's take a look. Last piece of video here, because he didn't just complain about how the party screwed his father. That was apparently a lot of the interview. But they talked some other stuff too. They got into some policy discussion and talk about taking a line on immigration that is not going to win you too many accolades from the Paul Riveras of the world inside the Democratic Party writing this autopsy. Here is Hunter Biden on migrants and people who have a problem with illegal immigration.
Talk about the one guy, because there's a clear legal path to being able to get him back. What about all those other people? Am I not supposed to feel for someone? Am I going to be like all these Democrats say, you have to talk about and realize that people are really upset about illegal immigration? Fuck you. How do you think your hotel room gets cleaned? How do you think you got food on your fucking table? Who do you think washes your dishes? Who do you think does your fucking garden? Who do you think is here by
run.
the fucking sheer fucking...
He should run. That would be his campaign. I mean, from what we're seeing in this interview, his campaign slogan would be "Fuck you, Hunter Biden 2028." Fuck you. Fuck you. That's it. This
Fuck
is who
you,
America deserves.
and it wasn't my blow.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. This is who America deserves right here. You say you're concerned about illegal immigration? Fuck you. Fuck you.
It's grit and will that they figured out a way to get here because they thought that they could give themselves and their family a better chance. And he's somehow convinced all of us that these people are the fucking criminals. White men in America are 45 more times likely to commit a fucking violent crime than an immigrant. And the media says, well, you got David Axelrod and, Rom.
I don't know where he got 45. That's wrong. Maybe he meant to say 425.
I mean, when I heard that, I was like, that can't be right.
That's not true. That's a wrong stat. It is true that immigrants commit less crime relative to the native population.
Which makes sense. You don't want to get deported.
Yeah, exactly.
Emanuel was so fucking smart, Rahm Emanuel.
Oh yeah, it's okay. So more
times likely to commit a fucking violent crime than an immigrant. And the media says, well, you got David Axelrod and Rahm fucking Emanuel was so fucking smart, Rahm Emanuel. He said we got to understand that these people are really mad, and we got to appeal to these white voters. Rahm, the only people that fucking appealed to those fucking white voters was Joe Biden, 81 years old. And he got 81 million votes, and he did not because he appeased their fucking Trumpian sense, but because he challenged it. And he said, you can be an 81-year-old Catholic from fucking Scranton that doesn't understand it, but still.
Once again, he won because people were afraid to breathe the air in their supermarkets. That's why he won.
Exactly.
He did not win based on the merits of.
And he didn't win by much, considering that Donald Trump basically wiped his ass with an N95 mask in the middle of a pandemic.
Yeah, he won by really he won by a smaller margin than Trump won in 2016 when you aggregate all the swing states. Trump won by 80,000 votes between the three closest swing states. Biden won by about 40,000 votes between the three closest swing states.
Still has empathy for transgender people and immigrants. Then nobody said, oh, Joe Biden's going to turn us into a socialist state, no matter how much they said it. But these guys think that we need to run away from all values in order for us to lead. I say, fuck you. How are we getting those people back from fucking El Salvador? Because I'll tell you what, if I became president in 2 years from now, or 4 years from now, or 3 years from now, I would pick up the phone and call the fucking president of El Salvador and say, you either fucking send them back or I'm going to fucking invade. It's a fucking crime what they're doing.
Well, hey, I mean, I think he's right on with that. He said, if I were president, I'd threaten to invade El Salvador.
He's not the leader we want, but he's the leader we need.
Exactly. So, it's a low bar, but I agree with this. Guys, hate me if you want. Hunter Biden is pretty fucking base. Well, I shouldn't say that he's pretty base. He's the most base Biden. He's definitely my favorite of the family after this interview. You know what I mean? Definitely, with that family, yeah, I definitely much prefer Hunter to his father, certainly, and to Joe Biden. What a character. What a character. But yeah, man, like you could tell, the other thing that really comes through with this is when you look the venom he has for the Obama inner circle, right? He can't go right at Obama because Obama's still, the leader, right?
Yeah.
He still, has this halo over his head. But yeah, everyone around him, Emanuel, Axelrod, all of these strategists, yeah, they are pretty bitter. And like I said, he's delusional about his father's ability to run that race. But yeah, what he says about
he's delusional about his father's record as a politician.
Yes, and who he was as a person, obviously. And, I'm assuming Hunter feels the same way about Israel that his father did, judging by his assessment, more or less, that it was sour grapes over the ICC warrants that made George Clooney write that letter, right? Like, that doesn't speak well.
I mean, we haven't seen this 3.5 hours. I would love to see. So why did your father open his 2019 campaign bragging about his relationship with segregationists?
Yeah, exactly.
What would he say to that?
Yeah, no, I mean, he is completely deluded in that sense. And in all seriousness, probably a pretty odious guy from everything. For everything that we know about it.
Really, I just kept thinking the worst people you know are fighting each other like that. That's
yeah,
what
right,
this
exactly.
Is.
Yeah, yeah.
It is embarrassing for the Democratic Party insiders because of who he is. Clearly, Hunter Biden knows a lot,
right,
and he has a lot of tea to spill,
right.
And you never hear somebody who's in a position to know these people behind the scenes telling the truth about them like this.
Right, because they all give a fuck. And this is the benefit
Right.
of the guy who just doesn't have to give a fuck anymore, right?
Yeah,
So
he has no reason. He's never going to have a political career with his history, so whatever. Whatever. What you're seeing here, because I've always seen Biden as a Nixonian figure. He was very similar to Nixon and having those insecurities about not having gone to the right schools and not being part of the smart set and wanting to take revenge on all the smarty pants Kennedy types, right? And that's what Obama's crew was to Biden.
Oh,
so
yeah.
in a lot of ways, you're hearing Joe Biden's unfiltered hatred of these people through Hunter Biden.
Oh, that's absolutely it. Yeah, no question about that. I mean, that's the other level on which that's interesting. You're really hearing what Joe could say if he was able to speak and if he felt like it was appropriate to speak in that way. That is a glimpse into what the conversation was like at the Biden household as this was all going down. Who the fuck does she think she is? Who the fuck does she think she is telling you to put your big girl pants on? I mean, everybody, Pelosi, Axelrod, Carville, the whole lot of them get the treatment there. So he might not have the ability to run for office and win. He's probably unelectable, but as a troll, if the Democrat does win, they should make him Secretary of HHS. They should make him Health and Human Services Secretary. I mean, that's just appropriate at this point. I think, like, if they're going to give you RFK, you see their RFK and you raise them Hunter Biden. He's Secretary of Health and Human Services.
Make him the press secretary.
Yeah, right. No, I like Health and Human Services because he talks about drugs. He talks about crack cocaine is better for you than alcohol. That's what we need at HHS moving forward. So I think whoever wins should nominate him. Yeah, exactly. Minneapolis DFL endorsed Omar Fateh for mayor, says John M. at their convention last weekend. Neo-lib current mayor Jacob Frey cried foul. Because of course he did. Well, thank you, John. So is there an incumbent mayor seeking another term? Wow. So he's actually looking to primary a sitting mayor. That's pretty impressive. I didn't realize that when we covered that. How do you think the Hague Group, the China plus 20 countries formed against Israel, will actually do anything, or just more finger wagging? Also curious that Russia didn't send a representative. Thanks, Otacon. Well, I mean, what they can do, there's nothing stopping these countries from just economically organizing and circumventing Israel and its backers, right? And so that's what I think they could do, and that's what that's what Francesca compelled them to do, and she was right too, obviously. We are at over 2,000 in the chat, and 1,052 on the like count. There you go. Otacon says, speaking of Hillary's bad messaging, I have a basket of deplorables, AR-15 meme lower to commemorate the quote. Oh, you make memes too? There you go. Luis de la Cruz, yeah, Russ, I thought this acting in Sinners was great considering the bad script. Musical numbers were cool. It's not a movie I would watch again. I started watching it. I didn't finish it. Not because I was bored. I just couldn't,
How was that a bad script?
Yeah, I thought it was pretty good. What I saw of it was good. I saw the first half. I saw right before the vampires came in. That's basically where I stopped. Abiding says researchers trace DNA from the bat at Ozzy concert in 1982 directly to Wuhan province. There you go. Thanks, Abiding. Appreciate that. What do we got over here? Bob Nagy says, please reach out to the China show. Winston and Matthew talk and explain how bad China really is. China isn't living in the future. It's really bad. All right, well, we'll have to see what China Shill says about that. The third man, thanks to 1999, glad I got that BA in art history, Obama. Otherwise, I wouldn't know that today is Edward Hopper's birthday. It really is. Go see Nighthawks in Chicago sometime. you will thank
I did.
Oh, it's in Chicago? That's where they have that painting?
Yep.
Oh, interesting.
The Art Institute. Yep. They have that. They have American Gothic there.
Oh, cool. Andy Gardner.
I bought this mug there, actually.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, there you go. All partisans defend their daddy, Hunter, MAGA, whatever. It's psychology.
Yeah, sure.
Russell's Peasant Mind says Candace is doing an Epstein series. Who knows? Maybe we'll find out Ghislaine was born Greg. Haha, good one. Thank you. All right, folks, we got one more on the day before we get out of here. One more segment. So smash that like button if you're here. Smash that subscribe button and the follow button over on Rumble.
For those of you who need health insurance, things are about to get a lot more expensive. Your health insurance premiums could soon go up 15% or more. This is what I voted for. Now you might remember that there's really a case of stick-to-itiveness, and if at first you don't succeed. The Republicans have been trying to kill the ACA pretty much since it passed, and while we have lots and lots and lots of criticisms that I wouldn't even call it a half measure, I'd call it an eighth measure. It was a measure. It was better than what you had before, as people are going to very shortly be reminded. So you might remember, let's take a little trip down memory lane. John McCain, whether because he feared hell being at death's door or whether it was just absolute hatred of Donald Trump, it was his no vote that saved their first major attempt to get rid of the ACA.
1:29 a.m. Senator McCain re-enters the chamber. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell stands at the front of the room like he had most of the night. The grin on his face, though, quickly disappears.
Mr. Peters.
Senator Bernie Sanders appears to nudge Senator Jeanne Shaheen as if to say, "Watch this." McCain waves his hand to get the attention of the Senate clerk, pauses for just a moment, and gives a dramatic thumbs down. An audible gasp on the Senate floor, and then commotion. Some Democrats can't contain their excitement. Senator Elizabeth Warren leans in to get a better look and breaks into applause. Senator Dianne Feinstein, a single assertive clap. Senator Sherrod Brown slams his hand on the desk in affirmation, while some Republicans, like Senator Marco Rubio, stare in disbelief.
Yeah. So when you look at how he did it, I'm saying more spite than fear of hell. He made a big show of it.
Oh, yeah.
Big dramatic show of it. That was, I'm saying, to spite Trump. He died a little over a year after that vote. That was July 2017. Okay. Repeatedly before and after that vote, they've been trying to challenge provisions of the ACA at the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court has repeatedly upheld the ACA, much to their frustration, slapped down attempts in 2012, 2015, 2021, and even this year to gut provisions of the ACA. So what do you do when you can't win legislatively? You can't win legally? Well, pass this big, beautiful bill, so-called, where everyone's concentrating so much on the draconian Medicaid cuts, they don't notice that you're essentially defunding the ACA as part of this. So let's take a look at a little video about this.
A lot of people that rely on the marketplaces to get coverage on their own, and this significantly shreds that safety net.
Joanne Volk is the co-director at the Center on Health Insurance Reforms at Georgetown University in Washington, D.C. We spoke with her remotely.
So there's actually sort of a double whammy hitting here. People are going to pay higher premiums for their coverage. They're going to have less help to pay for them.
That double whammy starts with the costs for people getting insurance through the Affordable Care Act. They're set to go up on average by 15%, the most in 7 years. And as the price goes up, certain tax breaks are going down.
The law in place now that gives people bigger tax credits to pay their premiums will expire at the end of the year. And because of that, they expect that healthy people will not continue to stay enrolled and only sicker people will enroll in coverage.
That's the second punch of the double whammy. KFF, a health policy research group, says the loss of some tax credits will drive up out-of-pocket payments by over 75%. The Congressional Budget Office projects at least 4 million people will lose their coverage.
On some level, is this sort of the equivalent of an Affordable Care Act repeal light?
Yes, absolutely. By one estimate, enrollment will be cut in half.
And what does that leave you thinking?
People, unfortunately, are not aware of what's coming down the pike. They're going to enroll in coverage and open enrollment this year as they would any fall, but they may not know until late in the year what their actual consequence will be for their premiums and their out-of-pocket costs.
It sounds like a major fear you have is people don't realize what's about to hit them.
Absolutely.
Dr. John LaPook, CBS News.
If you buy insurance on your own through the ACA's marketplace, your coverage may be a lot more expensive as soon as you sign up for coverage next year. If you're on Medicaid, the GOP's bill creates new work requirements that will take effect next year and could put your benefits at risk. And if you get insurance through your employer, your premiums are going to grow too if other people lose coverage, which is more likely to happen because of all of these changes. So you see, this is going to hit pretty much everybody.
Right.
If you thought you're just going to beat up on the poor with this bill and you're not poor, so you thought you weren't going to be affected, you're going to be affected.
Well, of course, it's insurance. It's a pool. So the
It's
fewer
a
people
pool.
there are in the pool, the more everyone in the pool has to pay.
Exactly. Across more than 100 ACA marketplace insurers, premiums are rising by an average of 15% in 2026. So you can see here, this averages it out. So on average, 32% of people will see an increase of 10 to 15%. 24% of people will see an increase of 15 to 20%. 12% will see an increase 20 to 25%. And on the highest end, 8% will see an increase of 30% or more. As Republicans were pulling together their budget bill, there was the clear question of what to do about enhanced ACA subsidies that have been in place since 2021, first authorized by the Democrats as part of their own budget reconciliation legislation. At the time, the enhanced subsidies both lowered costs for people already eligible for financial aid under the law and extended eligibility for financial assistance for the first time to more middle-class families. Marketplace enrollment nearly doubled from 2021 to 21 million in 2024 as a result. More people with health insurance can't have that. But the enhanced subsidies were only authorized through 2025. Republicans who had previously criticized the ACA for making health insurance unaffordable for the middle class people who have now gained coverage through the expanded assistance opted not to include an extension of the subsidies as part of their tax and spending bill. Instead, they chose to allow the subsidies to lapse while slashing Medicaid spending over the next decade and providing an outsized tax cut for businesses and the wealthy. I hope you really, really, really love Elon because you're paying for his tax cut, probably at the expense of your health insurance. Without congressional action to extend the enhanced credits, net premium costs for eligible enrollees will spike by 25% to 100%. If healthier people drop their insurance, leaving less healthy people in the marketplace, premiums could further increase. So this is a breakdown of the federal poverty level categories, how much you have to make to be in each category. Now, what's amazing is how low these categories are. For a household of one, making $22,590 puts you at 150% of the federal poverty level. Wow. So this is how much your premiums will increase on average. If you make 150 to 200% of the poverty line, 725, 2 to 250, 573, 250 to 3, 848. Let's see how much you have to make to be considered that. All right. So if you're a single person, you're making between 37,650 and 45,180. You will see 573 more. 250 to 300. Oh no, 848 more.
Yeah.
300 to 400, 516 more, and 400 plus 2,914 or up. And then you could see how many people are insured with the expanded ACA coverage and how many less in each category will be insured. So at that 150% poverty line level, 3.9 right now, that'll be down to 2.5 million. 150 to 200, 4.1 now, down to 3.1. So yeah, this is what they are prepared to do to the average American. This is not Medicaid now. Now you're talking about people, middle-class people who are paying for health insurance. You're talking about people who get their health insurance through their employer being impacted. Pretty much everyone who pays for insurance, which is, everyone who's not uninsured by definition, everyone's going to pay more so that oligarchs who have never done better. There's some analysis says you didn't see this kind of wealth inequality in ancient Egypt.
Right.
This is now, obviously, the numbers there are hard to come by. We know this is a greater wealth disparity than we saw in the Gilded Age, right? We associate the Gilded Age with horrific wealth inequality. We have worse wealth inequality than that. And they went this far in hurting people to give a tax cut to the richest people in the country who don't need it, who wouldn't even notice these amounts of money. It is on principle. They fucking hate you. They hate you, and they want you to die, and they want you to suffer. All they want from you is what aristocrats always want. They want you to be weak, and they want you in your weakness to worship and adore them. That is all you're good for. That cheering crowd at Madison Square Garden, that's what they live for. And the more degraded you are while you cheer for them, the better they feel.
Yep, 100%. And, what you see here, these premiums now affecting people going well into the $60,000 income range, which is considered, 400% of the poverty rate. So they really don't care whether you work or not, right? This whole idea where
not about that. Nope.
They trick the working class, they trick the middle class into having disdain for people who, either don't work or don't work enough or don't make enough at their job or who don't have a job that provides insurance. What this shows you is their contempt is basically equal across the board for everyone who isn't them. They just use stupid people in the middle class and in the working class, quite frankly. They use people's knee-jerk reaction to hate people who are lower on the economic ladder than them as a way to make them feel as if they are more empowered than they actually are. But what you see in an example like this, in a story like this, is that, they view all of us as peasants. Why wouldn't they? What difference in their mind is there between someone who makes 60 grand a year and 20 grand a year? What difference?
Right.
When your income and wealth is in the stratosphere, you look at all people below a certain income line as of the same class. And the only reason why they stress things like work requirements and things like that for Medicaid, they do that in order to advance their political power. Because if they introduce a work requirement in Medicaid, well, that's a way to trick the schmuck who makes 50 grand a year into hating the guy who makes 10 grand a year. Right. And because they hate the guy who makes 10 grand a year, they vote for whoever hates them more in their mind. Right. And that's what gives them power. So they have to do that. But that's about power. That's not about policy making. It doesn't reflect their ideology or their attitudes towards work or income or, equality, distribution of resources, anything like that. They view all of us equally in the sense that they have disdain for people who are not as wealthy as they are.
They hate you. They hate you. And when you think about this vision, just think about it for a second. this is what I voted for. So what you voted for is low-wage factory work with no health insurance?
You voted for decay,
Like, is
demise,
that what you
and
voted
death.
for?
That's what you voted for. It's
Right.
it's a death cult. It's a death cult. That's why I always called the MAGA movement is like a jazz funeral. That's what it is. It's a celebration of death and suffering. That's clearly what it is. If it's not, what do you have to say to a story
It's an
like
insult to jazz funerals. Those
Yeah.
are kind of fun.
Those are kind of fun. Yes, yes. It's exactly. It's jazz funerals with worse music. Yes. But that's what it is. If it's not, then put this in some other context where I can actually understand it, because it is just a collective expression and a sort of perverse celebration of suffering and misery. That's why the places that love Trump the most are the places who are most immiserated, most hollowed out. You know, when you drive through a deindustrialized town, what do you think to yourself? This is Trump country. That's why. That's why. Because despair is a very, very powerful thing. It's very complicated how it works, but it can be weaponized very, very easily by very cynical politicians.
Well, sure, because you're talking about people who have nothing left but someone to blame.
Right.
And that's what they're providing them with. We keep saying this, and you know, it's true, and she kind of said that specifically in regards to this, that people don't get what's coming. Remember, the impacts of these policies have not really been felt yet.
No.
What do you think it's going to be like when Americans are paying more for goods than everyone else in all the countries around them? Nobody's coming here to study. Nobody's coming here to vacation. And you can't get health insurance. Like, what do you think things are going to look like in 12 months? I'm not talking 5 years. We're talking in a year. What do you think this country is going to be like to live in?
Of course. Of course. The amazing Blumpkin says, Scotty, know what I have here. It's a whole bag of shh. There you go. P. Walker, tired of this president that behaves like he's on crack. Time for a president that genuinely knows crack. And fuck you, Hunter Biden 2028. Thank you, P. Walker. Nick Wesley literally just visited China. The future is there. Thank you, Nick. Luis de la Cruz says, more importantly, a small-town Texas cop turned over a family member to ICE after a driving infraction. We're parceling out his stuff as if he died, knowing we might not see him again. That's horrible. That's horrible. We'll have to cover stuff like that. We had a couple ICE stories that we'll probably do on Thursday. Carville the Hunter. Charlie Sheen could take more crack than you nepotistic, non-crawfish eating bitch. Take a tampon and rub it on a rim of margarita glass and eat it. Put that in your pipe and smoke it. Thank you, Stoop Sign. You gave us the Carville impression that we needed. We should have done that in the segment. Hunter Biden, the Hassan Piker. Look at me. I'm the Joe Rogan now. That's right. Hunter sucks not giving his pops a line before the debate. Yeah, that's true. He should have given him some. Cracky Biden strikes again. Free-based Biden. I like that one. Free-based Biden. Yes. Good one. EO Shush says, I live for James Carville impressions, and you mention him and don't do it. Thumbs down on this episode. Yeah, we should have thought it. That's what I just said.
Enough.
We should have thought about that. We should have thought about Carville clapping back at Hunter would have been good for that segment.
Our bad.
Yeah. Fucking strung out asshole. May Jest, speaking of crowds cheering in Madison Square Garden, what do you think will happen next time Trump enters a big boxing match or like a UFC fight? I mean, they'll probably still applaud. Those are the last people to turn their back on Trump. You know, insecure men are basically the only base he has left.
He's good at Formula One for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, exactly. Thanks for the donation, Bronx Comrade. Appreciate that very much. Thanks, everybody, for being here today. We appreciate you all. The Misty Winston Show is back tomorrow at 8 p.m. Eastern on Rumble and X. And then we, of course, are back Thursday midday. So Thursday at 12 p.m. Eastern. Until then, thank you to the YouTubers and the Rumblers. Thanks to the mods for keeping the peace in the chat today. And thanks all of you for spending your afternoon with us. Until we see you again, be safe and be well.
Courage!
Please clap.